the shadows creep, three voices haunt what most won't believe. LBL nights and Talladega pines, tracking strange things between the lines. Misty sees ghosts in the midnight haze, grows remedies in garden rose rays. Pine straw sprite and animals too. She knows the woods better than you. Greg made peace with the boogers one night. Now they steal his deer clean out of sight. Spencer studies every sound and track. Don't say dog man, he ain't having that. They hear your stories from across the land. Campfire truth from everyday man. And now let's join Squirrel, the Possum, and Big Chief.
Hey everybody, welcome in to Woodwalkers. This is part 2 of the Origin series, and Greg's the guest today, and this should be fun, y'all. We welcome everybody in. I don't have a plan. I'm just here. We're going to just wind Greg up and turn him loose, let the gate open. But we want to focus more on before some of his stories, and we're going to get his stories put in one spot. So, you have people like, where can I see your stories? And Spencer had this idea to get it put here. So you can say, well, go to episode whatever, and you see Misty, Spencer, and Greg. So we're going to bring the rest of the people up. Y'all know them all. They all got nicknames. I don't remember all their nicknames.
Hey, y'all.
I can't say some of the nicknames, but there they are, y'all. Welcome in.
Thanks for doing this, Roger. That's awesome.
Spencer made me.
I love it.
And I did not create the intro. Roger.
I love it. Roger did. Yeah.
Created the intro.
And I apologize. I was focusing on certain things, and I did not know, Spencer, that you had on sequins. Isn't that what I'm saying? The only person that noticed it was Misty. And I was like, "Oh my God!"
I'm sure that was completely.
It ain't just sequins. It's glittery with sequins.
I was focused on the talking and the computer screen to see if it kind of looked like a spectrogram or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty good."
If they make another Twilight movie, they're going to call me and see if I want to be a double.
I love it. It looks good on you. I mean, it suits you.
He's bedazzled.
No, we're not. Stop. You already did this on Misty's episode where the first 30 minutes was
I know. We have to get in our groove, and the bedazzling was unintentional. But now that I know I can do it, kind of fits him.
Shut up,
Billy.
Shut up.
So, y'all, welcome in, everybody.
Hey, y'all.
I guess we can let Greg get his last draw off of there.
No
doubt. He's got one of my old shirts on. Look how big it is. He done shrunk down. How much?
Yeah, I got it.
How much water weight did you gain in the hospital? It was like
Dude.
a big percentage, wasn't it?
Man, when I went in the hospital last October, which I'd been sick for a while, and I was pulled down. I was about somewhere about 220, and in the course of 13 days of them flowing fluids in me, I went up to 278.
That's crazy. That's a big percentage.
Yeah.
Well, so we want to get started. I want to go way back. As much as we've all talked, and me and Greg talked, we grew up similar, and I think one thing people kind of dismiss a little bit, when you have somebody say they saw this or they heard that, if you grow up outdoors in the woods and all that, go back to some of your early times, just briefly. of some of you when you started hunting and the time that you spent out in the woods before you knew about these things.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, let me set the record straight though. I am on a weight loss journey. When I said 278, that's what I was in October. Right now, 204 pounds. Watch me go.
Good job.
I'm losing down. Anyway, now y'all, I mean, I grew up here in North Alabama, and basically spent most of my life in the woods. It just, what we done for a living. My mom and dad had a farm, and we raised cattle and goats, and we had four big poultry houses, and I mean, massive. The chicken houses were like 40 feet wide and 350 feet long, and we were getting 30,000 eggs a day, and egg farm. And we had horses at some point in my life, and just outdoorsy stuff. I mean, my dad, he done commercial fishing. We would catch catfish and sell them, and we just outdoors. We hunted and fished, rabbit hunted, quail hunted, dove hunted, deer hunted. You name it, North Alabama. If it was here at some point in time, we hunted. Spent a lot of times in the woods, camping. Wasn't much on hiking, because hiking for me was just like going on a walk. I figured if I was going to do that, I might as well be having a firearm with me to shoot something, bring home to eat. It was just hiking was a waste of time. But now, trudging around through these hills and hollers, and where I'm at, I'm in the lower part of the Appalachian Mountains here. This even in Alabama, where I am, it is still part of the Appalachian Range. So we used to laugh about it. The land here, we didn't have the big flat farm fields like they got in the Tennessee Valley. Our land is rough. It's just fodder to hold good land together. It's just uphill, downhill, and a few flat places here and there. And it's a lot of woods, a lot of hardwoods, which, sadly the Forestry Service cut a lot of the hardwoods and went back with plantation pines for financial gain. But we still got a lot of hardwoods, and it's just a pretty place. I mean, we got a big, massive lake here, creeks and rivers and streams, and Alabama is basically just covered up in waterways. So it's diverse terrain. We got a little bit of everything right here where I'm at. But y'all, I mean, I grew up in the woods, and I was the guy that I was the one that I've made this statement. I wouldn't say that I didn't believe in Bigfoot or boogers or critters, whatever you want to call them. It's just I didn't think they were here. I thought, man, for me, seeing the Patterson-Gimlin film that came out in the in the 60s, late 60s, you look at it, and I'm smart enough to realize that nobody had the ability to produce a suit to do what that did. There's no way they can't do it right now. They don't have the technology in 2026 to reproduce what they had in 67. So that told me a lot. And then, but I was the guy that always said, I never saw anything, never heard anything. And and now I look back, and maybe I did hear things or experience things, and I just didn't. I brushed it off. Didn't just I don't know what that was. It was a weird sound, and who knows, and it wasn't affecting me. So I went on about my business. But after I started having really my encounters, and I was confused. That was the biggest thing for me, was the confusion aspect of it. Of I couldn't explain what was happening to me. We like I said, we've hunted all over Alabama. We've hunted down below Tuscaloosa, above Tuscaloosa. We've hunted Greene County. We've hunted Lamar County, Marion County, here in Winston. We've hunted all over the state. And, I'd never had anything that, big hairy giant jump out of the weeds on me. So, I grew up, I was born 74. So, when the Legend of Boggy Creek come out, I was a kid, and, that scared the shit out of me, like pretty much everybody else. So, but I'm still thinking, I was big enough to tell where a mount was, and, Falk, Arkansas is a hell of a long way, and there's the mighty Mississippi's between here and there.
Yep.
So, I didn't give it much thought. My dad was a a very manly man, and he was raised in the woods just like he raised me. And my dad was a exceptional hunter and exceptional in the woods. I'll say that he was absolutely one that it didn't matter what it was. If it was something to do with outdoors, he could master it. And he instilled a lot of that in me. And he'd never seen anything like that. Dad was, I come along late life. Dad was 32 when I was born, and so I always had him to look up to. And we, like I said, we hunted all over. We've hunted, about anything that could be hunted here in Alabama. And my cousin, which was Dad's second cousin. Anyway, they owned a lumber mill, sawmill, and they had owned it for years and years and years. And they owned a lot of land. I mean, lots of land, like thousands of acres. And he was never married, didn't have any children. He had a couple of nieces and had one sister, but they weren't interested in hunting. But he owned a lot of property, and I grew up hunting a lot of the land that he had because, hey, him and my dad were more like brothers than they were cousins, because Dad didn't have any brothers. Dad had sisters, my Aunt Verby, that a lot of y'all have got to know. And then he had another sister named Carol, but it was just Dad. And then my cousin Norman, he just had his one sister and then some nieces. So they were absolutely bonded like brothers. And I grew up hunting Norman's property and hunting a lot of his land. Well, it dawned on me, and back in the 90s, he had a 40-acre piece of property that was absolutely surrounded by several thousand acres of U.S. Forestry Service land. And it was just a isolated piece of property. It was down a Forestry Service. We'll call it a road. And that's using the term loosely because it was pretty much a pig trail. And but it was passable. I mean, you go in and out in the vehicle okay, but it was grown in on the sides and really secluded. But turning off the pavement, it was a mile or maybe a mile and a quarter down in this road. You went through all this government land, and then he had this 40 acres that bordered the river. Well, and this was I mean, on a map, it looked like a square box, just a square 40. But the river come around one side of it, and that was the boundary line. Well, he had it logged probably in the early 90s, 91, 92, something like that, and he had it clear cut. Well, it left all this big timber all the way around him. It was on Forestry Service. Well, when he had that logged and clear cut, they didn't go in and replant it. He just let it just come back on its own, and it grew up like a jungle. I'm talking about a absolute jungle. It was weeds and briars and honeysuckles and pines and any hardwood you can think of. And this stuff, just a lot of poplar saplings, but it just grew up. And it, by the time I hit him up for him to let me hunt that, he said, "Oh, son, that stuff, they said it's bad." I said, "You can't even get through it." I said, "Well, I can still make out where the old skidder roads and skidder trails was. It didn't grow up as fast as the rest of it." And I said, Dad had his own bulldozer. I said, "Look, if you let me hunt that, just do me a lease on it. I'll carry the dozer down there and I'll fix that road that goes around the property. And that way we can use it." I said, "I think if I can go down there, if you don't care, I'll put in a couple of green fields for the deer to eat on and a couple of tree stands or something." And I said, it's going to give me a really edge ahead, because state Alabama owned government property, any property then, it was illegal to pour out bait for deer. Now you could do green fields, but see, you couldn't do them on government land. So I got all these thousands of acres, and kind of out here in the middle of it, I've got this private land that I know if I can go put a real good valid food source in, thus the green fields, that I'm going to draw deer. I'm not just hunting deer on 40 acres. I'm drawing deer for, half a mile or a mile around it to come there and eat. It's going to be a honey hole. He said, well, look, son, I don't care what you do. He said, go over and treat that like you own it. He said, if you want to push the road out, that's fine. He says, growed up mess anyway. He said, you ain't going to hurt it. I said, well, you know, I just want to make sure it is all right. He said, nah. I said, I don't care. So that's yours as long as you hunt it. Anybody ask me, I'll tell them I got it leased to you. So that's what we did. We took the dozer over there, and I spent the better part of a week running that dozer every day. And I cleaned out the old roads. And once I peeled back a lot of the briars and stuff, one of the main roads going in it went in and forked, and one of them went off down toward the river, and one went straight out, kind of out on a big plateau or a flat up there. And it was still gravel. But once I pushed all the weeds and stuff off of it, it was the big old, we call it cat head rock. And that'll come in important several times. But the old rock, the old limestone, it'll be about big as anywhere from a baseball to a softball. And they put that big rock so the trucks wouldn't sink hauling the heavy loads. Anyway, I clear that road out. I get out there, and I found a spot where they had been loading the logs. You know, they'd set up their knuckle boom, and the skidders would drag the logs up and load the trucks. So it was a pretty big area. So I cleared all that out, and that made a really, really good green field. It started out, it was a little over an acre, maybe an acre and a half. And then a few years into it, I went in there and actually made it a little bigger. I pushed it out to about 2 acres. But I built that green field up on the top. And like looking at this screen, up here on this part of the property is, well, actually it'd be like if the road went in like down here where this hand is, and you went in and like here, like looking at the actual screen, there's one green field here. Well, this road where it went in, it went down this way. And then up here where this hand is was the lower field, and the river would be up here at the top, this top border. So they're kind of not side by side, but they're kind of diagonal across the property. So it stretched them out about as far apart as I could on the land. Y'all, I made a road that went, you could go in and go through the top green field, and you could go up and go down to the river and come across, and you could come into this bottom field and then just make a loop and come back to the truck. And I put a gate up. I gated it off to keep people out, of course. And I had intended on, when we got there, we would just open this big 16-foot cattle gate. We'd open it up and drive in and park, which the old metal gate, it squeaked like crazy, and you had to deal with a chain. And, you know, when you pull up there in a truck and you're going to go hunt, the last thing you want to do is be cling-a-ding-ding a chain on this big metal gate and swinging it open, making all this noise. But on the inside of the gate, for us to have somewhere to park, I'd pushed out a little spot. It was probably, say, 30, 35 feet, like a circle, 35 feet across, and you could pull like 3 or 4 vehicles and park. We never used it. I would park, just pull up to the gate and pull my bumper within 3 or 4 feet, get out, walk around the gate, and go hunt. And there was plenty of room out there because the road went actually by that gate and went on, and it was about that big a spot outside the gate as it was inside. It was just easy, and, you know, I was kind of lazy. I didn't want to have to get out and open my damn gate, but it rocks on. We get the fields planted. We get it all prepped. We put up 2 ladder stands, about 16-foot ladder stands, and we were ready to hunt it. I mean, we had spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money getting this prepped to have a really, really good hunting spot. And y'all, we planted it in like, you know, September, like maybe second week of September, and the grass started coming up and it was looking great. And Dad and I, we were going down there maybe once, twice a week. We just go down there and look at the fields, and the grass was just, it looked like green carpet. I mean, it was gorgeous. And we were seeing deer tracks everywhere. I'm talking about, we were excited. It was anything from little fawn tracks to, you know, big buck tracks. And it's like, this place is absolutely loaded with deer. We're drawing deer in here, and oh my God, we can't wait to hunt. Well, bow season. Back then, bow season came in then on October the 15th. So, you know, we've had this green field. It looks good. We got a month in. We got these 2 fields ready. Dad and I are both excited. We go in there to hunt, and we parked. And Dad, you know, like I said, Dad was 32 years older than me, and this would have been in like 2000. We parked the truck. We go in, and I told him, I said, look, once you hunt that top field, because going out to it from the gate, it was just level walking about 200 yards. You went out the road and it went out straight and it curved just a little. And you would go out in the field, and we put the tree stand for the way the wind was. We put it on you had to walk across kind of one corner of the field, and it was setting out of the field. We don't never put them where the stand is like, right in the field. You back up in the woods about 15, 20 feet, put your stand, and then everything breaks your outline up. But anyway, he was going to go hunting. I said, why don't you go out there and hunt? It's easy walking, it's level ground. It's just like walking in Walmart parking lot, except it's gravel. And I said, I'm going to go off this dang mountain down to the river, and I'll hunt the lower field. And y'all will hear me reference the upper field and lower field. So that's what happened. We go down there. This is the first time we ever hunted it. We go down there, and I sit there, and I'm just like on pins and needles thinking, any second there's going to be deer just flood this field. I sat there and sat there and sat there, and for several hours, not a deer, not nothing shows. Don't see anything. I'm sitting up in there, and it's starting to get later and later and later. And anybody that's an avid deer hunter will tell you that the prime time for deer to step out in a field or to really be moving is right before dark. The last 10 minutes of shooting light is very, very valuable. Well, it's got down, it's go time. Something should be happening. If there's going to be one come out, it should be any second. Well, this bottom field that I'm in, it's kind of a narrow and a long field. The thing's probably anywhere from 20, 25 yards wide, and it's about 80 yards long, 85 yards long. Well, the tree stand where we had to put it on, it was on one end. So you're looking at this little narrow field that goes down 85 yards. I'm sitting up in there, and like I said, I'm on this end. And if I go straight out the bottom end of it, you just go probably 25, 30 feet out of that field into the hardwoods, and it just rounds over, and it goes really steep slope about 100 feet, maybe 100 feet to the water, to the river. So I'm just up off the river barely. I'm sitting in this stand. I'm sitting there, and I'm not moving. I'm just cutting my eyeballs left and right and listening and trying to pick up any sound. And there's really not much sound at all, period. And out of the blue, right out the end of the field, I'm talking about close. This thing couldn't have been 20 yards out of the end of the field. So I'm going to say it was no way it was any further than 100 yards from where I'm sitting. It sounds like Babe Ruth is trying to explode a wooden baseball bat. This thing hits a tree, and we've got a lot of beech trees, and beech has got a real thin bark, and the tree is really hard. And this is not, it wasn't like something hitting a pine tree, and everybody knows how a pine tree bark's real thick and it's soft and crunchy. No, this was like kill-dried lumber slapping together, and it hit, y'all, and it absolutely sounded like a rifle going off. Just kapow! 1, 2, kapow! 1, 2, kapow! And it's just echoing. It's echoing down the river, down the hollows, and I'm like, my God. And instantly, I'm mad as hell because I'm thinking some a-hole is coming here. They probably hunted this property and was doing it illegal, and they probably come in here and saw that what we've done is probably ticked them off because we're hunting this property, and it's going to have them shut out. Well, and in my mind, this a-hole is not wanting me to hunt here, or at least wanting to mess my hunt up. So I'm not happy at all.
Which in hindsight might be true. It just might not be what you thought it was.
Roger, that's exactly correct. What we came to figure out was that I was probably correct. That's probably exactly what it was. It just wasn't a human. But I sit there a couple of minutes, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there totally froze still. I'm just like start moving around like USOB, God, and I'm just kind of cussing under my breath. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Idiot. And I just start gathering my stuff. I'm like, there's no need me sitting here. This moron might as well be down here beating pots and pans together. So I gather my stuff, let my equipment down and grab it all up. I walk to the truck. Now this is a little over 200 yards going back up this dang mountain. So the time I get to the top of the hill, I'm sucking wind and I'm pissed.
Mad.
Yeah, and I'm mad. I'm highly irate, and I can't figure out what's going on. So I get it back to the truck, and I'm standing there for a couple of minutes, and I can't remember if Dad had just got there when I got there. I don't remember if he was already there or if he come walking up. Just anyway, we got there close, same time. He said, "Did you see anything?" I said, "No, did you?" He said, "No, I didn't see nothing, but I knew you didn't see nothing." I said, "What?" He said, "Were you down there making all that racket?" Said, "There ain't no way in hell you was going to see anything." He said, "What was you doing?" I said, "That wasn't me." I said, "There's some moron out here at the end of this field." I said, "That's beating on a tree." And I said, "My God, it was loud." He said, "Lord," he said, "how far is that?" I said, "That's probably 400 yards up there where you was." He said, "It was just echoing down them hollers." He said, "I couldn't figure out what you was down there beating on." I said, "It wasn't me." He said, "Well, it had to be on top of it." I said, "Daddy is out the end of this field. Couldn't have been 20 yards out the field." He said, "Reckon who it is?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm fixing to find out." "What do you mean?" I said, "Get in the damn truck." Well, this road went by this gate where we were parked, and it went down about a quarter of a mile, and it drops off a steep hill, and it flattens out, and it's right on the river. It just dead ends. This is a dead end road. From the road to there is probably 1.5 miles to the very dead end. Well, I'm in a 4-wheel drive, and I know this road very well. I've been down it, hundreds of times, and I know it takes somebody with a really good 4-wheel drive to go in and out of this rutted up hill in these woods because it's steep and it's long. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is not through the woods from where I'm at down here. It's not just a couple hundred yards to this dead end. And if somebody's come in, they've come in from there. They had been in that property before we got there that evening because I never heard anybody drive by. I never heard a vehicle. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm fixing to pull down here and I'm going to see who's down here. And we're going to have a little heart to heart and come to Jesus meeting and figure out why in the hell they're messing up my hunt. We get in the truck and Dave's like, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, we're fixing to have us an adult conversation." And I said, "Dude ain't going to like what I got to say because I'm going to get to the bottom of it." We drive down through there in my 4-wheel drive and we go off this mountain and we drop out. There's not a vehicle. There's not nothing. There's nothing there.
I need to paint a picture for folks. And Greg and Spencer and Misty will back me up on this. If Greg Howse says it's a rough drive,
yes.
So just pointing that out. If he says it's rough, because he'll go anywhere. If he has to think about it twice, you probably shouldn't go. So
I've seen the spot that he is describing, and like he said, there ain't no way. There damn sure ain't no way nobody hiked in there and was just wandering around the woods.
No. But I get down there and Dad's like, "Well, where are they at?" I said, "Well, hell if I know." I said, "There's nowhere for them to be." I said, "There was no boat come in. There's no vehicle." I said, "I don't," and I'm puzzled. I'm just like, it should have popped a bubble over my head, had a big damn question mark in it because I couldn't figure it out. I could not for the life of me figure out what in the world went on. And that's where it all started. That day is when it started.
So, I know you put in all that work and time and money and it wasn't your land, but you felt connected to it. I've had situations where it just pisses you off, and people will do things like that. So that's just normal to think that's what was going on because y'all, some people are just buttholes and they'll do stuff like that. So when you went home and thought about it and was thinking about the terrain and where it happened and all that, did any kind of thought pop in that could be something else?
Not in the least, dude. Not even a smidgen did I think it was Bigfoot. It was just I'm trying to figure out who this butthole is and how in the world they come in there, and I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. I could not explain how, because here's the deal. It wasn't a deer doing it. It wasn't a possum. It wasn't a coon. It wasn't no bear. I mean, whatever this was it had to have picked up. I'm talking about, and I don't mean a rotten log. I'm talking about something that would have been really big and like a green piece of a tree limb or something. Because y'all, it was horrible. When this thing hit, it was hitting so hard. It was like you were slapping like 2x12 kill dried lumber hard enough for it to explode, like it's a splinter. And you know, I couldn't have took a bat and hit a tree and made it make that racket. And I just could not put it together, what I was hearing versus what could have done it.
And Greg, there's little details I want to go back to briefly. I saw a question in chat about wood knocks and all that. People that have spent a lot of time in the woods, you know the difference between hardwood on hardwood, a half dead limb on a pine tree, the thump versus the crack versus the resonation of that hardwood versus a mouth pop.
And so, if you've ever heard a wood knock in person, there is a moment where you distinctly, like a real one. They do light taps and stuff too, but a real wood knock, when you hear it in person, it goes through your head. What in the hell is that? Because it's so loud and so forceful. It doesn't. There's no question in your mind that, I mean, like what Greg was saying. It almost sounds like the wood is splintering.
Yeah. Whenever
it hits, it's so forceful. It's a very, very loud and dynamic thing. And whenever you hear it, and especially whenever you hear pow, 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 and it's got a cadence to it, and especially if something else answers back with another one afterwards.
That's what I was fixing to say, Spencer.
Y'all, just right quick, everybody in chat that don't know this, it's very easy to go to some woods, pick out a pine tree, pick you out a good stick, hit a pine tree, go hit a beech tree, go hit the thinner bark, harder woods. They'll make different sounds. And that's part of Bama said, your bank of sound memory.
Yes.
It's not like you're trying to figure it out. Greg knew instantly that it was probably, he knew the terrain. Well, that was probably a beech tree, you know, because he ruled out instantly these other trees wouldn't sound like that. That's just I like to point out small details like that and give people, like, look, go experiment yourself. You'll see the difference. And what Spencer said, you can't replicate it. You can make the sound, but you can't replicate the volume. No,
there ain't no way. Can't be done. There's not a human on the planet could recreate that volume.
And a recorder, unless it's right there at it, it don't pick it up like you hear it in person either. You're
correct, Misty. 100%. That's another reason I don't try to record anything, because it is not going to do any good. But what Spencer was talking about, y'all, when I tell people that I've heard the tree knocks, I used to tell people that I've heard them dozens of times, because I'm trying to get people to believe me at my word on what I've heard and experienced. And it got to a point that I had it so many times, if I was absolutely brutally honest and, you know, tried to nail it down, I don't know how I would even count how many times I've done it or heard it. And there's no way in hell because people out here going, I've been to the woods for years and I've been researching, I've been from Kalamazoo to wherever, and I can't find nothing. I ain't never heard shit. Well, you know, if I tell them that I've heard it many times, there's going to be a stretch. And if I start saying I've heard it dozens of times, they're really going to cock their eye and look at me. But when I try to explain to people that I've heard them hundreds of times, they're going to think this dude's the biggest liar that's ever lived. So, that being said, I really don't care anymore, because I've heard it hundreds and hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. And what Spencer was talking about a while ago, them answering, I've heard them more times than not. And here, for some reason, they're stuck on the number 3. If most of the time it's going to be the first knocks you hear are going to be the ones that's the closest to you, and it's going to be 3 knocks, and you give it just a few seconds, minute, you'll hear a reply, and it'll be 2. So we'll start off with 3, and it'll be answered by 2. I've heard that over and over and over again.
And, you know, I don't want to, you know, act like we know more than everybody else. I want to like pinpoint some of this stuff, but so you can, the people in chat that don't know, there are some can go and test these things. And look, if you grew up in the woods, like all of us sitting here did, doing things, you can tell the difference between something stepping on a stick, something breaking a stick, you know, off the ground. You can tell the difference in pine cones hitting the ground, acorns hitting something. It's hard to explain, but when you hear something, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and I forgot what I was going to say, Misty. You messed me up.
I'm sorry, Roger. Now, I was just going to say, it's like that with everything. You know what I mean? Same with like if you listen to the dogs around the neighborhood, you can tell where stuff is, where it's coming from, which way it's traveling, whatever, because there's always going to be animals or something making noise that's going to give something away. And if you listen, just like you said, whenever, you know, something's walking through the woods, if you really listen and pay attention and you're out a lot, you can tell pretty much, you know, the stride that they're given, how fast they're moving, and whether or not, you know, they're bipedal or down on 4. I'm sorry.
David Hughes says, like, you can tell the weight of whatever's walking too. It's not just something you know. It's from experience, seeing this while it's happening or whatever. So when Greg hears something that he's never heard before, and he knows how powerful it is, his anger, which is understandable, probably, and he don't know anything about boogers at this point, right? All of us have been there.
And this is a really good point, and I want Greg to keep expounding on this point. But the way I see it in my mind, think about this. I think everybody can relate to, like, if you hear something in the middle of the night in your house, you'll go through your head and go, could it be this? Could it be? Oh, it was probably that, because you're used to it. It's your environment. Right.
Exactly.
You know, it would be like if you come home from work and there's just a random lawn chair in the middle of your own yard that's not yours. It would stick out like a sore thumb because that's your environment. You're used to it. I just want to really highlight, put yourself in Greg's shoes. He's hunted all his life. He's always been in the woods. He knows exactly what he's doing with the hunting thing. This is a different section of woods, but it's woods. It's the same as always. He's been there for a month or 2, clearing it out and working on it. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, with these wood knocks, I know it sounds like a simple thing. Oh, it's just wood knocks. And a lot of people have experiences that they second guess themselves. And that's the right thing to do, is to not jump to conclusions. That's the right thing to do. But whenever something so blatantly out of place happens like that, it really makes you go, what the hell is going on? I mean, it's a weird thing. It's a Twilight Zone kind of thing. And you have to understand being in that mindset for all of the other stuff that he's going to talk about as it's building up. It's just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And it's very foreign whenever he's extremely used to that environment. Anyway, sorry, Greg.
No, and Greg, also, you grew up around there. People knew your family. How many people would have been brave enough to mess up your hunting?
None.
Okay, so.
None.
All right.
Yeah.
And y'all, I know these sound like small details, but the small details or the way people are brought up, their knowledge, Greg knows. He described it as 2 of the hardwood planks slapping together. He's probably seen that 1,000 times and heard it. So, you know, it's anyway. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry, we're messing your show up.
No, y'all doing wonderful. But anyway, y'all, I mean, that, like I said, that was the start. That was the first the first time the woodpecker hit the tree. Anyway, later on as we hunted this property, I mean, just within a week or so, we're going back to the property, and I've got this eye out. I'm trying to figure out, and it's still rolling in my head, who is this and what are they doing? And I've done built in my mind this idea of, like I told you, it's some dude that was probably hunting this is probably pissed that we got it and we're hunting it, and they're probably jealous and they're trying to mess us up. So my senses are heightened, but I'm looking for this dude. I'm listening for a boat. I'm even getting to where I can see the river and look for a canoe. I'm thinking, well, maybe this SOB's paddled up here in a canoe. I'm going down every avenue that I can expand, but I can't come up with, there's no way in hell that somebody is walking, that they're walking down in here, because it's way too far. And it winds up, we start having other things happen that I cannot explain. I'd be in the stand, and we started hearing, the other big thing we would hear was whoop, WHOOP. And these things, it would be, and it wouldn't have to be right at dark. Sometimes it would be 2 hours before dark. Sometimes it would be anywhere, most time from, say, 2 hours before dark till dark. And I've heard them way off. And y'all, I've been in that thicket. And now when I talk about it, this thicket, I mean, look, Alabama, if you've never been here, it's like being in Amazon. You can't, like right now, you step in the regular woods here, you can't see more than about 8 feet. Now, this cutover that I'm talking about had grown back up, and this stuff's probably 10 feet tall. We'll just say 10 feet at this time. Well, it's a grown up jungle. It's like trying to look through this wall right here. The tip of your hand, if you walked up to it and stuck your hand out, you're not going to see past your elbow. I've had these things be within, I'm talking about be within like 25, 30 feet, not yards, but feet of me. Me being in the stand, and the damn things whoop. And it would be so loud it hurts your ears. And it would be a long drawed out, just go whoop. And it was like, God dang, and it's like you're critiquing everything, and it's like you can't see nothing. It's like you're blind, but it's right here. I'm in the stand, and it's right there. I've heard them walk around, walk off, but the thing would whoop, and here in a minute you'd hear another one whoop, like they were whooping back and forth. Well, here's the deal. If to start with, if you heard it way off, you think, well, kind of damn bird is that? Is that a bird? What? We're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Well, we were hearing whoops, and then we would hear whistles. And then it got to where we were hearing grunts and huffs and growls and all kind of
just a bird.
Well, I mean, really, but like the first whoops I heard wasn't like 20 feet. It may be 75 yards, 50 yards, but it would whoop, and it's like, which now, bear in mind, when I was a kid growing up, I got the hell scared out of me one time. I was squirrel hunting, and I was in a pine thicket about 200 yards from my mom and dad's house, and it was about another 100 yards to the neighbor's house. Little did I know, my neighbor had acquired a freaking peacock. And my little ass was about 8, 9 years old. I'm off in the deep dark woods by myself squirrel hunting. And right before dark, this damn peacock unraveled, and shit, it might as well have been the devil himself. I didn't know what the hell that was. Yeah. So, done been there, done that. Unknown noises and freak you out. And anybody had never heard of peacock, yeah, go off. You're a little bitty kid off in the woods by yourself, squirrel hunting, and a peacock screams out. Yeah, shit. I know what that was.
Want peacocks so bad, but I've got neighbors, and I know what that would be. So,
so you know what I'm saying? It don't sound like.
Well, Greg, I was in a similar situation in a new place to hunt. Was in a cedar thicket, but it was a different type of cedar thicket. They were tall, and the branches were way up, so I could see through it. That's why I picked the spot. I go in the first morning, and I didn't know the neighbor had a donkey. And this before daylight, he started winding up that woo, and it starts bouncing off of these trees, and I'm in pitch dark, and for about 30 seconds before he let loose with his regular bray, I was panicking inside. I wasn't running nowhere, but I was running inside because it was confusing. But anyway, I know exactly how that feels. And but I was so relieved when I finally figured out what it was. But that's the thing, it don't take long. You know, hey, it's a peacock, you move on. But it takes you back to that point. And when you hear these things that you don't understand going on, and then when you realize what it could be, that's another level of fear. So
yeah. Well, Roger, the first year that we had that, and like I said, we had many encounters. We'll label it encounters because we was there and encountered something. Now it wasn't they were standoffish. They wouldn't coming right up to the stand in the thicket. They wouldn't following us out yet. They were just they would come in there, and like I really think that they were alerting the others more or less that something was there, somebody was there, letting them know, hey, they're here, stay back. And the first year, that was pretty much it. It was tree knocks, whoops, whistles, and a few huffs and grunts, but not much on it. But we
storm in here, y'all.
You know, we hunted there, you know, season went out the last of January. We went through that season, and, you know, I was lost as Moody's goose because we couldn't figure out what all these weird noises were. You know, it's like, what? This makes no sense. Nowhere have we ever hunted. We went through all this crap. And we would now, every now and then, I'd been sitting on the side of this green field, and I would hear it sound like something big going through the thicket. But it wasn't nothing. We didn't feel threatened. We just felt annoyed, and we still was trying to chalk it up as it was just some type of animal or some type of a-hole person that we were dealing with. Well, mind you, season went out. We had no need to go back to that property. You know, we worked and had a farm and all this stuff, so we were busy all summer. Well, then September comes in. We go over there like the first week of September, first weekend, I carry the tractor and the bush hog, and we go through and bush hog the road I'd built and all the shooting lanes and the green fields. And then I go, you know, carry the bush hog home, bring back the disc, and we plow the fields up and plant them. So we're back. You know, we've been gone from the end of January to September. You know, they've had all year, or that part of the year. I guess maybe the boogers were thinking, well, we run them off, they're gone. You know what? Now it's back ours again. Well, then lo and behold, here these two humans come back, and they're back doing something else. So we go in, plant the fields, and just kind of hang out from there. We'd go down maybe once a week, drive the truck, drive around the fields, and just look for deer sign and see how the fields look. We'd leave. Well, October 1st or October 15th comes again. Well, guess what? We're back in there hunting. So we're hunting this a good bit, you know, at least 2 or 3 days a week, because it was really close to my house. I could even working. I could get off work. I could go jump in my truck or my Jeep and take off, and I could be there in less than 15 minutes and be up a tree and hunt for another couple of hours till it got dark. So I've hunted a lot. Well, the interaction started increasing. It started being more of, they were getting closer. I was hearing more of the walking, and it was bipedal walking. And I'm like, what in the hell? What is this? To the point of, you know, I sat in a stand one day and I heard whistling coming, and it was a monotone whistle. And when I say loud, I'm talking about loud. And it didn't ramp up. There was no melody to it, no cadence. It was just about every probably 10 or 12 seconds. If you counted, sure enough, 10, 15 seconds, it would just be I don't know if I can even whistle right now, but it was just I can't even whistle. But it was just a solid, and it would pierce your ears. Well, this thing come between the field. I was in that lower field. It came between the bottom of that field, about 80 yards from me, in the river. It was on that slope. So it traveled from the big hardwoods. It came through those hardwoods, and it went into that cutover. And when this thing got in that cutover, Y'all, it sounded like you had a four-wheeler or something that you deleted the motor noise. It's breaking limbs. It's pushing stuff out of the way. I can hear honeysuckle vines ripping, like you pull a vine, it rips the leaves off. This thing is breaking sticks and saplings, and it's just walking. Well, where I'm at, the main hardwoods to my right it's pretty flat, and it goes down in a swag, and it come up, and it come in the field. And then on this side, it kind of went up a little bit of a hill, and that's where it started getting steep, and it went up to that other field. That thing comes through that hardwood, around the bottom of that field, and it's walking. And it's whistling. Now, why in the hell it's whistling? You know, it sounds like it's probably traveling, I don't know. It's not going fast. It would take several steps and stop, and then it would walk a little bit and stop, and it would just periodically whistle. It just keeps whistling, and it goes through this cutover, and it's going right up toward that other field. And this thing is moving on. Once it hit that cutover, it's like it didn't quit walking. It's just like it was just walking, like, well, I've made it through the hardwoods. And I wondered this. I wondered when it was coming through the hardwoods, it would walk and it would stop, and then it would walk and stop. If it was like, you know, it was a little bit more open, and if it was walking and then like looking around and walking, looking around, but when that thing hit that real thick cutover, dude, it just kept going. I mean, it didn't check up hardly. It just kept walking, and it was whistle, and it would whistle and whistle some more. That thing went up really close to Dad, and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Well, when I came out that evening, I asked Dad, I said, that thing come by your stand, didn't it? He said, what in the world was that? He said, God dang, that thing was whistling. He said, it got close to me. He said, it whistled, hurt your ears. I said, that's what it was when it come by me. I said, when it come around into that field, it kind of angled back. It got within probably 60, 70 yards of me, kind of angling back, but I couldn't see it. I said, whatever the hell that was, come through that cutover like it was walking in Walmart parking lot. It was just walking. He said, yeah, so that thing was breaking limbs and logs and pulling vines and pushing sapling. He said, that thing was big. I said, I ain't got no clue. I ain't got no idea what that could have been. But it was things like that. It was just like we would get a little piece of the puzzle and try to figure out where to put it and click it in place. Well, we were stumped. We couldn't figure out, okay, we don't have any more pieces. Well, then it may be a week, it may be a month, something else would happen. And that about the second year, they got to where they would follow you. You'd come out of the stand and you'd hear something. It never would be behind you. They would never get ahead of you, and it wouldn't be straight to your side. It would be kind of like over your shoulder behind you, either your right or your left. And when you'd walk, it'd walk. When you stop, it'd stop. And I've done that and played with it. And a lot of times you could make them mess up. You could start walking and stop real quick. And
hey,
they would,
Greg, continue. I'm gonna check the weather. It sounds like it's getting rough. I'll be right
don't
back.
get nadered. Don't get nadered, Roger. But anyway, I would start walking, and instead of walking like 30, 40 yards, I would walk 2 or 3 steps and stop real quick. And when you would, you'd hear them. You could hear it better when you weren't walking. So I'd kind of mess them up. And it got to where it was almost a game of me trying to make it mess up so I could really pinpoint where it was at. And I still couldn't figure out what I was dealing with.
Well, hold on, though. On that point, now, at some point, it had to go through your head.
Yeah. Oh, it did.
This ain't just a person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no way that a person is out there harassing you as much as you're out there hunting, because you were hunting all the time on that property. So at the point where you're rolling all this stuff around in your head, especially come the second year that you're going through all this.
Yeah.
Were you something along the lines of, okay, I don't think it's really a person, but I don't know what it is?
Yes. Well, what kind of got it in there, Spencer, after a couple of years dealing with this, right here really close to where the road turns off to go to this property on this paved road, this 2-lane paved road, and it's a U.S. highway. There was a guy that we went to church with. he was a night security guard for a mobile home plant. And he had to drive about probably 30 miles to work. But he came right by where the road went in to go to my property I was hunting. And like I said, it's only just barely over a mile from the pavement down there. Well, word got out that this guy had a sighting. And this guy, he was an avid outdoorsman. And he was very, very, very well liked and well respected in the community. But this guy wound up, he confided in a couple of his buddies that he had saw something that absolutely freaked him out and scared him to death. And he didn't know what really how to even tell anybody what he had experienced. And what it was is the guy was coming home, and there's some real sharp S curves just in the highway going up this mountain. He rounded the curve about 4 o'clock in the morning. When he rounded the curve in the road in front of him, one of these things was kind of crouched or squatted, and the thing stood up and walked across his lane and across the highway in front of him. And it absolutely scared this gentleman to death. I'm talking about freaked him out to the point of he drove straight home, grabbed one of his Browning shotguns, loaded it with buckshot, made sure all the doors was locked, and just sat there. Didn't know what to do. He didn't know what he saw. But it was, I mean, you know, and then I got wind of that. And I thought, well, wait a minute. This guy's basically saying he saw a Bigfoot. So that's planted a seed in my head of, oh, crap, that's right through the woods from where I'm hunting. Well, then fast forward to June the 2nd of 2004. We're still trying to put things together, and I don't know if y'all can even remotely see. Can you see that at all?
A little bit.
All right, that's a picture of a Polaroid. That is from where I was hunting. I'll have to try to post this, but my cousin across the river from this property, he owned a bunch more land. He owned about 300 acres in one spot, but it's across the river. And from that green field that I was talking about, the lower field, you cross the river and go across 40 acres, and 40 acres is a quarter of a mile across it. That was a different person on that 40. But when you crossed it, you hit the other 300 acres that my cousin had. And that's where I hunted. I hunt this day. I hunt it now. But anyway, he was going to have some timber select cut on that piece of property. And he got 2 loggers to come look at it and give him kind of an estimate or a price on what they thought the timber would bring. Well, it was an older gentleman and his son. This guy was, I think, probably in his 70s, and his son was probably in his 50s. Well, they came down, and what they did, what they call cruising the timber. They walked through it and they cruise it by estimating, you know, what the timber, the size of the timber, how much of it there is, and what he thinks it's going to bring per acre. So my cousin was disabled, and he pulled up in his pickup, and then the older gentleman was sitting in the truck. They were parked side by side, and his son got out and was cruising the timber. My cousin said that the guy had been gone for probably 45 minutes or an hour, and said that he comes walking out of a deep hollow on that property. Now, that part of the property from that green field that I'm talking about, the lower field, is probably going to be right at a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter, the way it lays crowfly. But the guy came out of the woods, threw his stuff in the back, opens the door and gets in, and said the guy's daddy asked him, he said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "We're not cutting this timber." He said, "What do you mean we ain't cutting this timber? There's some good looking timber in here." He said, "I don't care." He said, "I'm not cutting this timber." He said, "What do you mean we're not cutting this timber?" He said, "We're going to figure him a price and we're going to buy this timber." He said, "I'm not cutting it." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Look, I'm not going back in these woods." He said, "What do you mean you're not going back in the woods? What's wrong with you?" He said, "Well," he said, "I found a track right down this holler right here." And he said, "I'm not going back in them woods." He said, "What, a big old cat track or something like that?" He said, "No." He said, no. He said, it's a footprint. He said there's a main branch that runs down through there. It runs down into the creek, which goes into the river. He said, I was in that hollow right there, and said the main hollow's going in. There's a hollow comes in, like tees into it, and then you got about another 150 yards and another hollow tees into it. He said, right there where that branch tees into the big branch, he said there's a little sandbar that's washed up. And he said there's a game trail. Said it was pretty easy walking. And he said I was walking that trail trying to, not step on a snake. And he said I got up to that branch and I was going to step down. And he said I looked down there in that sand and there that footprint was. He said, my God, said, I don't know what that thing is, but I don't want no part of it. And that guy wouldn't go back in the woods, and they would not even make my cousin an offer on his timber.
You scare a logger, you've done something.
Yeah, he refused to cut the property. So anyway, my cousin gets on the phone with me and calls me. He said, hey, because see, I'd done told him about what was going on that land across the river. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And he knew about the other guy having a sighting. All this was kind of happening, just doom to doom to doom. He said, you need to come over here. I said, what are you talking about? He said, come over here to the field. Said, he starts telling me on the phone about what had happened. I said, where are you at? He said, I'm still sitting down here by the field. Said, you need to come over here. So I tell Dad, I said, look, load up. We're going to go over here and see what's going on. So I drive over there. Now, I'm in my 4-wheel drive truck. Uh-oh.
I don't know what in the world's going on. Hold on just a second.
There we are.
Spencer's messing with you.
No, I moved the mouse to read that, and I guess when I clicked it, I hit the wrong thing. I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. You're fine. They are. But no, I take off over, and I got my dad with me. We're in the truck, and we're talking about it going over there. And there was a guy that worked. There was a guy that worked for my cousin, and we called him John, or his name was Johnny. We called him Big John because this man he's a big old feller. Now I'm talking about Johnny's about probably 6'3", about 350, and I've seen him pick up railroad ties like they were toothpicks. But anyway, Johnny's with Norman. We pull up beside him, and he's telling me, and I said, well, where was this guy at? He said, well, it's going to be right down there. And from where we were sitting, it was about 400 yards to where the guy was, where Norman was explaining it. Now, y'all, this is June the 4th in Alabama. And it is, like I said, like a jungle. It's ticks and snakes and spiders and every damn thing else. Scorpions run across the ground. And it's leaves, like I said, you can't see nothing. He said, I wish you'd go around there and see if you can find that. So I reach in my truck. I grab my shoulder holster with 357 Magnum, extra rounds, grab it, put it on. Johnny said, I'll go down there with you. Well, look, I'm just going to tell you, I wasn't real keen about stomping off in there by myself anyway, because, I get in there and get hurt, wounded, snake bit, or whatever. I'd at least like to have somebody to pray over me. But anyway, we could take off down there. And y'all, we get down to this branch and we start following it. And we find where the first branch comes into. And I told him, I said, it's going to be right past this. We keep going, and sure enough, just like the guy had explained and the way Norman told me where it should be, we find it. And this main branch is going, and this one's teeing into it. Right there, I guess where the water came in, it swirled the water, and it just shoved a bunch of just sand. Y'all, the side of the bank it wasn't quite waist high on me. It was between my knee and my waist. And it was just a straight step down. And then this little sandbar, it was, I don't know, a couple of feet wide and probably 5 or 6 feet long. But it was a deer trail. Or a game trail about this wide. And it just like went down and crossed. The branch was probably 5 feet wide. And then it went up the bank and continued on up that hollow. I look off that edge, and here's this footprint. It's just gleaming. You can see it plain as day. It's got 5 toes. It's sunk down in the hard sand. And the thing about it, anybody's ever been to the beach or on the side of a river where the sand stays wet. It's not like dry sand, where dry sand, you step in it and it just like makes an impression. This was actually firm enough with moisture. It was like you made a clay mold of it. And y'all, this thing was big. I'm talking about big, big. It was like somewhere around, I think it was 9 inches. At the ball of the foot was, I think, 9 or maybe a little over. I got all this wrote down, but I hadn't read it since in years. But it was like 9 inches wide and was right at 16 inches long. And the dang big toe, the big toe would have been like that wide and that long. And anybody that's hunted or tracked anything, when you see where something is stepped, like a deer track, when it impacts, usually the mud or dirt, or if it's damp, will kind of like splatter out. And we call them the little dingle balls that splatter out, you know, like little wads. And you can look at that because those little bitty balls of dirt or sand, they'll dry real quick. So if you see a footprint or a track or whatever, it doesn't matter if it's a paw, a hoof, or a foot, where that splatters, if you look at that and it's still nice and wet, it's fresh. And if that's dried out, you're looking at the percentage of dry stuff versus still wet. And that tells you a lot about the time frame of how long it's been there. Every dang bit of this was still wet. I'm talking about wet, wet. And you could see in front of the dang toes, like out in front of the big toe, it was like, say my hand's the big toe, up here in front of it, it was kind of a little bit of a horseshoed line, and it was out in front of it where the toenail had slit the sand. It actually looked like you took a knife blade and put it in it and pulled it out, and it kind of flipped the sand up. This thing had toenails that were actually sticking out the front somewhat. So when it stepped, the toenails dug in and it picked its foot up. I stand there and look at this thing in just absolute awe. And I had a Polaroid. Now look, this is how long this was. I had a Polaroid camera behind the seat of my truck that when we would kill deer throughout the year, or, you know, during hunting season, we would take photos of our deer because we didn't have a damn camera phone. Well, I had took a tape measure and I took a Polaroid with me. So I stepped down. Now, I don't step close to it, but I kind of go over in the weeds and I step down, you know, maybe 2.5, 3 feet from this thing because I don't want to mess it up. Y'all, at that time, I was over 300 pounds. Now, I used to be a really fluffy dude, and I weighed over 300 pounds, and I wear a size 12 Timberland boot. I stepped down on basically the same exact consistency of sand or terrain that this thing had stepped in. When I moved my foot, you could barely make out the tread design on the Timberland boots. This track over there was mashed down probably at least a ½ inch deeper. And it's way bigger than my foot, and it mashed down probably 3 or 4 times as much as my track did. And here, like I said, I wear a size 12, and I'm over 300 pounds. So how big is this thing that just mashed down on a bigger pad than I've got? This thing's heavy. It's bad heavy. And the bad thing is, oh shit, this is fresh, like, you know, within just an hour or two. And because by the time we get there, the logger guy he'd come out of the woods probably less than 45 minutes before Dad and I would get there, and me and John walk in there to it. But I used up a whole cartridge of Polaroids, taking pictures of it, and I couldn't, you know, there's no focusing on a Polaroid, and the camera, you know, it was hard. Even today, even the cameras we got today that you can tweak and zoom and all that, pictures don't show crap. So what I did, I took there were some ferns growing on the bank. I pulled some stems off and I pulled the leaves, and I just kind of outlined it the best I could to show the general, like the length and the width, and kind of surrounded it. But you can see the 5 toes. I mean, the Polaroid itself does way better than this. And this track was good enough that Tal Bronco, Bill White from Arkansas, the researcher, the book that he done, the Southern Bigfoot Files, this picture that I tried to show y'all just now, that exact picture is in that book. That was one of the pictures of my pictures that he asked me if he could use for his book. So it's in the Southern Bigfoot Files book.
Well, y'all, and going back to another point, I know a lot of people understand this, but there may be somebody that don't. If something had a 16-inch foot that wide and weighed exactly what Greg weighed, it probably wouldn't made a track at all.
You're right.
Because, all of us know that the thinner the tires, you don't want to go out on the beach with thin mud grips, you're going to sink up. And that's why they make them wider for the sand tires and all that more.
No.
It distributes the weight better. Right. So, just little things like that. I know people are like, well, I don't, what's he talking about? Why? That's exactly what it does. The foot should be bigger on something that big for that exact reason, for stability and weight distribution, all that stuff. So
just like a snowshoe.
Exactly. There you go. Good point, Misty. Verax, he come in there with
Yeah.
But see, when you're listening to somebody telling a story and they're, experienced in the woods or experienced in anything, those little details matter. That when he saw that, and then at the LBL, I stepped on the mud, and same thing, barely could make out my shoe print, but these things are like 1.5 to 2 inches deep. So immediately I did the same thing as Greg did. I put 2 and 2 together and was like, oh crap, that's why I was scared. So anyway, Greg, I want to not skip ahead too much, but going by, your area, and you start hearing stories, and like all of us have, we get into this and people contact us. Can you quickly tell folks about the fire chief, about the guys kind of making fun that day?
Oh, that wasn't a fire chief. That was a man that was he was head of he was law enforcement here for, that's the one you're talking about when we were in the meeting.
Yeah.
We had some, I do law enforcement and been doing it for 18 years and counting. This has been 15 years ago, I guess. We had a FOP lodge meeting, and there was a couple of guys razzing me a little bit about it. And there was a guy that was there that was very, very well respected. These guys had kind of popping off, kind of poking fun at me about the whole Bigfoot deal. And that guy kind of cut his eyes around. And he said, y'all boys need to shut your mouth. And they just whooped around and looked at him. He said, y'all talk something y'all don't have any clue about, and said, y'all want to make fun of him. He said, I'm going to tell y'all something. He said, I've been in law enforcement a long time. And he said, I've seen one myself. And I like broke my neck looking at him. And he told him, he said, y'all need to, he said, don't be making fun of things you don't know about. Just because you hadn't ever experienced it don't mean it ain't real or ain't out there. And this guy at one time, he was head of a joint drug task force team. I mean, he'd been an investigator for years. He had a lot of credentials behind him and very, very well respected in law enforcement. And I got him to explain to me and tell me what had happened to him. But there's a campground, and from where that's at across to that campground is probably 3-4 miles, maybe. He said that, and they still do it. I mean, they still do it. I've went and done it like holidays and stuff like that through the summer, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. But now I would go through and like patrol just to be seen. Just go to the federal park and just go around the loop to, let people see a law enforcement presence. The government they want the county patrol officers to just make a loop. Just make a loop through the campground here or there, and just ride through, just checking on things. Well, he said one night, said that wasn't that many people at the campground. He said he was just a patrol deputy. Said he went around through there in his patrol car. He said he went around, and that campground has got two separate loops on it. You go in the campground, and the first loop goes in. It makes just a big circle with campsites, and it comes back out. And then you go down a little, come back out, and go down a little further, and there's another loop. Well, he said he'd made the rounds in the first loop, and he come out, and he went and he made the second loop. And as he's coming around, there wasn't really anybody down there. It had everybody on the front loop. He says his headlight swung around, said in front of his car, said there was a campsite, and said it just illuminated that campsite. And he said, I first thought it was 2 reflectors. He said, I'm talking about like them round reflectors on the little fiberglass pole that people put on their end of their driveway. He said the thing about it, these dang things was about 8 foot in the air and beside this big pine tree. And he said, I just stopped. And he said, this thing was right there in front of my car. And he said, I had my lights on bright. And he said, then I realized that those wasn't reflectors, it was eyes, and they was attached to something. And he said, look, said this big ass thing was, he said, well over 8 foot tall. And he said, looked like it's 4 feet wide, covered in black hair. It's just standing there beside that tree looking at him. I said, well, how far away was you? He said, less than 50 feet. He said, it was just standing there. I said, what'd you do? He said, I just froze. He said, I didn't know what to do. He said, I was trying to process it all. I said, well, what did it do? He said, it stood there for a few more long seconds. And he said, the thing just turned. He said, it took about 3 steps and just disappeared into the green leaves. And I said, what'd you do then? He said, I romped the gas on that car. And he said, I took off out of that loop. And I went back to that other loop, and he said, I just kept going round and around, shining the spotlight around everywhere. He said, because when the thing went back in the woods, it was going back toward that first loop. Mm. He said, I spent a bunch of time down there looking and listening, and said, never saw nothing. Nobody ever said anything. He said, I don't know where it went. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. People don't just openly talk about things like that. And I guess it kind of hit a chord on him because those boys was, you know, I kind of kept it quiet and hush hush, and I really don't know how they even knew about it, but yeah, they was ragging me about it a little bit, and he saw what was going on. He cleared his, one of them like cleared his voice, and everybody like whoops at him. It's like, oh shit, he's gonna say something. We better listen. But that was the end of them ragging me about it.
Well, that's why wanted you. I want to highlight a little bit of the community stuff too, and your stories, because you can go to Greg's community without any Bigfoot stuff on. If you listen, we've heard people tell Bigfoot stories in a restaurant next to us, didn't know who we were.
Didn't have a clue.
Didn't have a clue. We'll get to that later. But going back to the track, okay, now you've got all these weird sounds. You got things you can't explain. Now you've just seen a track that scared a logger enough that he's not going to cut the logs, which tells me he might know a little bit about that since he's been, he may know what that could cause. So now what's going through Greg Howse's mind, you've got this evidence of something that's possibly there. Now what's going through your head? On the way back to the truck, up to the trail, what are you thinking?
I'm just shaking my head going, gosh damn, this is going to be, this ain't a person. This is not a person that left this, and I'm going, we're dealing with a damn Bigfoot. But in the same sentence, my internal voice is going, there ain't no way. Nah, ain't no way that's what that is. But everything in me is like, I'm rolling through my mind trying to make it make sense of how in the world, I've been living through all this stuff for a couple of years now, or several years now, and all this is adding up, and it's just like kindling the fire. And now I've just thrown a big log on it. I've done heard the story, and then, it's just crazy. I mean, it's crazy. It's just a crazy thought. I cannot, it's like I'm reaching in a sack and I'm feeling something. I'm going, yeah, I think that's what I want, but I'm not sure. I can't see it yet. And, I'm still questioning it.
At this point, though, Greg, and you're walking back to the truck and you're having these thoughts, are you thinking you want to see one to confirm it or not? Are you, because a lot of people say they do until they do. So what's your mindset now?
Right now?
No, at that point.
At that point.
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, Roger, like I said, I was mixed up as a frog in a blender. I'm talking about, I was in a bad way. I just, because I couldn't, it's like, this is telling me it's what it is. Yeah. But in reality, everything's saying that this is bull crap. But, I'm like just, I'm teetering on the tightrope. I mean, I'm falling this way and then I jerk back this way. And, that's why I tell people too. Every time you think you got an answer, it creates 10 more questions because you can't explain it to anybody. It's absolutely hard to explain to anybody how the feeling that is. And see, it took me 9 years before I ever could see one. even though I had been chased out of the woods, I'd been followed out of the woods, I'd heard basically any noise that you've ever heard anybody attribute to these things. I probably heard it a bunch of times. I'd had deer stolen, just, you know, all kind of encounters. And y'all, it wasn't just me by myself most of the time. It was me and my dad, or my brothers would be there, or my buddy Al, God rest his soul. I mean, thank the Lord y'all got to meet Al and know him like I did, you know. But you know, I had mainly it was me and Al and my dad, and even my brothers. They're the point. Before I actually, you know, dealing with them, like really everything got real bad. My brothers, they kind of chuckled about it before they, you know, heard anything. There was one year, I think it was at Christmas. It was Christmas, Easter, or something. I think it was Christmas. It may have been Thanksgiving. Anyway, we were having our gathering, and, you know, like when my immediate family gets together, there's usually 16 to 20 of us. Well, they were kind of chuckling and said something about, you know, Bigfoot, ha, 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 ha. And my dad, like I said, my dad was kind of like, for us old people, we know who E.F. Hutton is, or was. My dad was like, when Dad spoke, everybody listened. He was like E.F. Hutton. Dad he heard it, he poked his head up, and he looked around and said, let me tell y'all boys something. He said, I better not hear no more of that. Said, what your brother's telling y'all is the damn truth. You better keep your mouth shut, because y'all don't have a damn clue what we're dealing with. And that squished that bullshit. They didn't say nothing else. But the thing of it was, y'all, my dad had heard that stuff just like I had. He was trying to figure it out just like I was. I wasn't going through it by myself. So that did really a couple of things for me. It solidified that I wasn't just down hearing shit, and I didn't need to be wearing one of them jackets that the sleeves tie together behind your back.
Mickey might have one of them.
Yeah. But, you know, I didn't need a straight jacket, and, you know, I wasn't imagining things, because if I was, he was imagining the same thing.
Right.
And, you know, it was somebody that I could talk to, and, you know, I had a witness with me. You know, he was witnessing just like I was. So that helped me tremendously. But like I said, we just go to the woods one day and one step out, and we saw it. It was just baby step right on into it, and it just took forever. But when I finally saw the first one, dude, that's when, even though I'd had all these years, 9 years of dealing with this shit, it took me forever to finally lay eyes on them. And when I did, it was just like my whole world just exploded. I mean, it was just relief, and you know, just a whole plethora of emotions, because, you know, I had proof. You know, I saw one. I saw him. There you are. Oh my God. What the hell? I mean, it was just all this at one time, just bam.
Well, and so dealing with this for 9 years, with all this evidence and all these experiences and encounters, the second after you, like Larry Porch said that time, I loved it. He said you had the Roger 5 minutes before seeing the Bigfoot and the 5 minutes after. Now you've got 9 years of all this experience, wondering, evidence, and you're on alert. Now, what's your mindset once you see how big it is, how they move, how athletic they are? Now, what does Greg think about going back into the woods with them?
Roger, that was when I had the come to Jesus meeting with Jesus, I reckon, because I had to do a lot of soul searching, because it'll change your whole existence. You know, here I am a lot of times, you know, I'd hunt by myself a lot. Mm-hmm. Here I am in the deep, dark woods all alone, and I've been playing with fire, and I wasn't smart enough to figure out that fire was a big old flame. You know, it wasn't just a smoldering cigarette. This is a wildfire, and I didn't have no really, you know, I was trying to play like it wasn't, but it was. I kind of knew it. But then when I really knew it, it's like, oh my God. And, you know, I done got to the point, because we done had so much stuff happen, and it had done ramped up pretty hard at this time, to the point of, before I even saw one, you'd be in a tree stand, you'd have stuff thrown at you. And, you know, we'd hear all kind of crazy stuff, huffs and growls. They'd come in and get downwind of your stand, and they'd go to growling at you, and we'd leave. And I'm like, you know, I still couldn't see one. And I'm on that fence of, you know, I'm like 98%, but it's just that 2%. I hadn't seen it. And I'm going, it can't be. You know, I'm still trying to talk myself out of it. I did that for years. But when I finally saw that one, there was no more backing away from it. There was no explaining it away. And what I saw was absolutely just, I don't even have a word for how amazing it was. And for what, it wasn't just seeing it, it was seeing it do what it did, and seeing it the way, the ability it had to traverse terrain and move. And I mean, it was like watching a high-speed cartoon, because it was like watching a Marvel comic movie. I mean, it was just astounding. But yeah, my whole world changed. Now, I mean, I'd already started carrying, you know, extra ammo, and, you know, I always I hunt with a Browning 30-06 semi-automatic. I'm damn near surgical with it. And, you know, I never feared anything in the woods, because, you know, I know my ability with a rifle, and I'm not just a hunter, I'm a shooter. And then I carry a combat revolver, a 357 Magnum combat revolver, and a shoulder holster right here. If I'm in the woods, I've got it on. Matter of fact, it's in this safe right here.
And y'all, when he says, this is how I knew early on, Greg's like me. Once you see something like this, whether to help you or not, you go armed bigger. And Greg, I showed up, and he's got 7-shot revolvers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, so that's a clue too. I mean, if people have the experience and see these things, or even something bad happened to them in the past where they got in a situation, or trained, they kind of overarmed, because I felt underarmed with some of the biggest things I've got with things going on. So, but
well, Roger, the one thing that I want to make brutally clear to people, I'm not advocate for anybody even shooting at these things. I don't want to shoot one. I've never wanted to shoot one. Have I had times I probably could have put rounds on one? Yeah. But that's where your problem's going to start. That ain't solving your problem. That's when it's going to go bad. For me, that's going to be, it's going to be a last ditch effort. That's going to be the Hail Mary of, I have got no other option. Because I think that's when it's going to go really south, is when you do pull a trigger on one, unless you're in a vehicle or some type of basically armored up, some type of fortress somewhere that, you know, a really like a strong cabin or something where you're protected. It's going to go bad. I mean, you're in the woods, because I'm going to tell y'all something. I mean, Bill White was the one that basically told me this. You know, Bill was a researcher for 60 plus years. And, you know, me and Bill, we sat on my porch and had a very long conversation about this. Well, we had several long conversations, but anyway, that's what he told me. He said, son, don't you ever pull the trigger unless it's last ditch effort, unless you're just about to die. He said, because here's the deal. It's going to take something massive to kill one. And he said, they're never alone. He said, they're not going to be by themselves. He said, they're going to be one or more that you don't have a clues there, because this one's got your attention. He said, they may be enough, just one more, and they may be 5 or 6 more. And he said, if you hurt that one and it goes to screaming, all bets are off.
And just if people don't know, if you have to be in this stuff for a long time to start to figure out who people are, where they came from, what their background is, and everything. If people don't know, Bill White, Cal Branco, his book Southern Bigfoot Files is the one that we always recommend. Greg's stories are in it, and some of Mark Green's stuff is in it. But Bill White was one of the guys that, like, behind the scenes, a lot of people in the Bigfoot world, whenever YouTube started getting going with the Bigfoot stuff, You never heard anybody really talk about him, but Bill White was one of the investigators that like really, really, really knew his shit, and he was well known in the Bigfoot community from the people that really knew what was going on. And Bill White would go to Alabama a lot to investigate because there was just so much activity there. And he singled out Greg because he had heard about Greg, and Greg got talking to him. And Bill White knew that Greg was telling the truth. That's why Greg covers, is it just one chapter in his book, Greg?
Well, he got like my sightings in it, and then my dad's stuff is in it. So he's got a pretty good chunk of that book dedicated to me and my dad both.
Yeah. All I'm telling you is whenever he says, if Greg says Bill White told me this, that's like saying I'm really good friends with like Kumbo, and Kumbo told me this, and you should probably freaking listen to it because it's somebody with a shit ton of experience that was well respected
And
in the community.
And we joke around and cut up, and that's just who we are. We're going to be us. If you see us, somewhere off, we're not acting. When these guys that are experienced tell you something, it's just like Kumbo looked me in the eyes at the LBL that night, and I asked him about this something, and he looked at me, and he changed. He said, "That's a place that no matter how many people you have with you, you never ever go there at night." And I'm like, "That's all I got to hear," because it's like we all care about each other's safety and your safety, the people that are listening. And even though we do joke about this, if something happened and if us four were out and you were with us, we're joking and cutting up. But if the crap gets deep, we're going to go to that mode. And and I've always told my kids, I've told people in my life, if I ever tell you something, you'll know it. Do exactly what I say, and when I say do it. And so somebody like Bill White, telling Greg, he was warning him for his safety. Now he carried, if I remember correctly, he carried a little pistol, but we carry stuff because of the other things,
Yeah.
hogs, whatever might try to get us. And the thing is, if you've had an experience, I don't care if it's just one experience with a Bigfoot, something inside you tells you, I don't know if it tells you you're not the top of the food chain. You never have been, but now you know. And I think that's what scares people a lot.
It's an intuitive thing,
Yeah,
that you can tell just from their vocalization. You have a understanding inside yourself at that moment that whatever this thing is, it's not everybody. You can say whatever you want on YouTube, on Facebook. You can have the biggest gun. You can go fully armed, whatever. I don't care if you have maybe a tank might would one, but you can tell that this is not, that's all of the games. There are no games. That's your modern firearms. The chances are good you're just going to piss it off. You're not going to kill it. It would be the last thing you ever wanted to do. The reason why people go armed is, like Roger said, is more for the other stuff. It's not for them, because if you ever shot at one of those, I mean, I 1000%, I wouldn't feel safe with a 50 cal BMG. And if you did hit it, you're still probably going to die. Because but I'll just say it's all fun and game. Whenever Greg gets to the motorcycle story, which is probably not this episode, probably next episode. That's my favorite. That's my favorite out of all of his stuff. I love that. I just because the way he tells it, just like all the stuff that Greg talks about, Greg is absolutely one of the greatest at being able to tell a story. and draw people in. It's just his personality. It's the way that he talks, but he can make you understand and feel like you're there with him in the way that he communicates it. But the motorcycle story, Greg, if you would have had a 50 BMG whenever that thing was happening, would you have said, shit, I'm just going to shoot it?
No. Now, Spencer, look, I was hiding behind that big pine tree with that Browning 30-06, and I
don't tell the story yet.
I'm not gonna go wide open. We'll give him a teaser, but I'm standing hiding behind that tree, and I've done pulled off my orange and hit it. So I'm praying that I'm not gonna get noticed. And I've got a Browning 30-06 wedged right here, and I'm holding it up, and I reach down and I unsnap the catch on that pistol. Where all I got to do when this rifle, in my mind, when this rifle runs dry, I'm going to either drop it or I'm going to pull this pistol and do everything I can. But look, dude, when something screams so loud that the sound flutters your clothes and it blurs your vision, you know it's bad day. It's bad day when it's that loud that the noise blurs your vision.
It's not a bobcat.
No.
Man, it just simple things is like, if we're in the woods or I'm hunting or something like that, and I hear something, I'm like, what is that? That's something light or whatever. When you can hear these things take a step or two, and the first thing you go to is something like a cow or whatever. But if there's no cows there, and cows have 4 hooves, there's a different sound when hooves on the ground than it is these things. The huff growls, all this, people, how do you know? Well, you tell me what else it was. It's hard to explain. Even recording, you can't explain it. But what I've noticed when you have something like a huff growl and people are listening to it, they don't want to say it's Bigfoot, but they always say stuff like, well, it sounds like an elephant. It sounds like this. And it's always something huge. The biggest thing they can think of, but we're in Middle Tennessee, North Alabama. They're not elephants tromping through the woods. If they were, but everything they do big, even when they're trying to be quiet. Now they're masters of the woods, and Greg has had so many experiences, but I think the trauma of the motorcycle story is probably his worst. But knowing how I feel and think, and again, Greg is painting a picture for all of us and you guys that are listening and watching, and he's given those details because of the way his mind works, and he's painting this mental picture for you guys. He does a great job with it. But I feel like, and I may be wrong, the second most mind-blowing thing was when the one was coming down the hill and had to cross the open like logging road or whatever, and
dude, I never saw nothing,
and it couldn't see it, and then it continues on the other side. You talking about a paradigm shifting mind mess, knowing that it's about to come out and he's going to get a good look at it, but something happens that he can't explain. That's the type of stuff right there when he says, well, every time something happens, there's more questions. Mm-hmm. And so when you hear these people make these claims about things they've seen, I can go back to almost every one of Greg's stories and find a little bit of that in it. So you can't discount it. I've had an encounter where I couldn't see the threat and it was right there in front of me in the broad daylight in the woods. That's one of the worst feelings you can ever have, because if you can't see the threat, you can't defend yourself. And I kind of went in survival mode, and in my head was like, we're fixing to walk out of here. If you attack us from behind, that's on you. That's not, you're an asshole is basically what I was thinking. I was scared to death.
Yeah.
It's scary just because of obvious physical reasons. Whenever you start realizing that these things are real, it's unnerving. But then when you add weird stuff that they do, shit like that, like whenever he talks about where it crossed over and like you just couldn't see it and then it started up again, on the other side of the trail, that's the stuff that really scares you, because then you realize not only are they real, you have no idea what the hell you're dealing with. You don't know what these things are capable of. It changes your mindset and it freaks you out. It makes you insecure, because the world that you thought the world was one way, and you're getting like firsthand experience that shit is different. You don't know how to process it, and that's freaky.
Yeah, especially it makes you the worst part is it makes you question yourself. About, all right, am I nuts? Because that wasn't right. And there's a good question here, Greg. The first year you hunted the green fields that you set up, how was the hunting that year? Did y'all do okay hunting, or was there days where it was normal?
Roger, we killed some deer on that land, but what we got to noticing over several years of hunting that property, you could go into that property and you could almost tell when you're going to start having encounters. You didn't have encounters every time all year long. You never knew when it was going to happen. You may have one encounter this week, and it may be 3 weeks. And then you may go 3 days in a row and have 3 encounters 3 days in a row, every day, boom, boom, boom. But one of the telltale signs was that you could go to that property, and when the boogers weren't there, the grass on that field looked like somebody had mowed it like a country club or like a golf course. It'd be mowed down. I mean, the grass would be short. And dude, I swear to you, I could have took my hat off, closed my eyes, turned in 3 circles, and flung my hat. Wherever it landed, if I went and picked it up, it'd be at least 2 deer tracks under it. It'd be just trampled. And that grass would be eat down. Deer was in there. It'd be old tracks, fresh tracks, whatever. You wouldn't hardly have anything happen, or you really wouldn't have anything happen. But you could go down there and hunt it for a few days, and you notice you wasn't seeing any deer, or give it a week, go back. The grass would be grown up. It done grown a good bit. And there would be no fresh deer sign. I mean, really, not to amount to anything. Well, if you were back hunting in the woods a day or two, you were going to have encounters. It was like the deer was like spooked out of there. So, but that was a big sign.
I don't think I've ever asked you this, Greg, but you know how, like what you're talking about right there, even without the boogers, just regular hunting, right? You can tell whenever deer are grazing in an area and they're there for, whatever. It might be 1 week or 2 weeks until they pick off whatever, and then they'll move. They'll be over somewhere else, 1/4 mile away.
Yeah.
We've always talked about you can kind of judge the booger activity based off of the other animal activity, like the deer and the coyotes and everything. With what you're talking about right there, did you ever, in that first year or two, before you 100% knew it was boogers, did you notice a correlation, like a timeline? Because if they were staying there kind of in that area, how often was it where it was like, the deer would be like normal versus the deer and everything else is gone? And how long were they gone? Because the general theory is that the boogers follow the deer around as a food source. And if the deer are there, the boogers are probably not there, or the boogers are just then getting there. And then the deer move off, the boogers will be there for a little bit, and then it goes for a while, and then the deer come back, and the whole process starts all over again. Did you see any kind of like method to it? Did you notice any kind of timelines, how it worked?
No, not really. As far as like scheduling it, like, we got 21 days or, 14 days, or no, not really. It was more random. But I mean, we did pick up on that, hey, the deer's not here, and it would be that way for a while. The deer would be there, and then we'd go and hunt several times, and we'd be having activity, booger activity, and then it would be like, well, shit, we're wasting our time, and we're spooked out, and having to deal with this. And it's like, and like I said, we're still on the deal of, at some point of this, we were still like, these assholes talking about people have run our deer off. We'll give it a break for a week or two, and then we'll go back on it, because thank goodness for, like, here in the state of Alabama, we've got such a long deer season. It goes from, it went from October 15th to the last day of January. So you got half of October, all of November, all of December, and all of January. So you had 3.5 months to hunt. So, I mean, it wasn't that big a deal to go hunt, because I had several other places to hunt. We'd just not go hunt there for a week, 10 days, and then go back and try it again. And, then you'd notice, hey, the deer are back. And so we'd hunt it some more. And then next thing you know, you're not seeing any deer again. But for me, the first deer that I ever had stolen, and people's like, oh, you just probably made a bad shot and blah, blah, blah. No, no. I've killed more deer than you could haul in 2 train cars, which we eat them. I mean, that's what we basically live off of. We don't buy beef. The Lord put them here for me to eat them. So that's what I intend to do. And we don't waste them. We don't kill more than what we're going to eat. Now I will occasionally, some of the older people in the community, they'll say, hey, you get a little extra deer meat, somebody that used to hunt and loves it. Maybe their health's got bad, can't, I'll kill one and get it processed, or process it myself. I've got all the commercial stuff to process my own, and I'll carry them, a big pile of deer meat. So, we manage our deer. We don't go out and shoot everything. We let our does, and we're really on a management program that we've adhered to for most of my life. And, but we try to really make the deer, we keep the herd healthy, and we feed them, spend thousands and thousands of dollars every year taking care of them. So, I mean, I'm not just a bloodthirsty killer. So,
well, I have a question, Greg. So, this might confuse people. You say we knew that it was going to be a bad day hunting for certain things. What I've noticed with Peyton and I, if we go to the south end place and we're hunting, and you get there and everybody knows, as soon as it starts breaking daylight, the birds, the squirrels, they start doing their thing. I've noticed this, like you said, it's not every time, but if the sun starts breaking and there are no little squirrels or birds or anything going on, I'm like, oh no, like it's probably here. You know what I mean? And almost every time something has happened, we stay all day. Like we talked about the MREs. Have you noticed that? Oh, sorry, but I don't know if Greg has noticed that.
What you're talking about right there, though, it goes into play with the whole thing. And what I wish more people that don't hunt would understand is that somebody that does hunt they're not just out there trying to kill an animal. They're watching the whole thing. They know more about what's happening in that area. The way that the woods work, the way that the animals move, the sounds that they make, like some people believe in the moon phase thing with deer hunting, which I don't particularly buy into, but I'm just saying hunters, they're really engaged with what's going on in the natural world. And you can tell stuff like that. And that's why whenever a hunter talks about like booger stuff, in my opinion, you should really pay attention to it, because that they already know what a fox sounds like, what a bobcat sounds like, the way that the animals move at certain times a year, even the forest and the trees and the condition of them and certain plants and everything. You got to pay attention to the hunters, because they're really, really involved in that area.
Yeah.
And some of them, like Greg, have hunted for decades on the same land. So you go in, it's just like he said, you come home and there's a random chair in your front yard, you're going to know it. That's the same thing with the trees, and you may find a break here or something that's shouldn't be there. And Ninja asked a question earlier about bad things happening, and I tell you how bad this was. I felt so threatened with me and my son. We basically set our guns down and I begged for forgiveness. That's how bad it can get. I just begged for mercy. That's what I was like. Hey, we're sorry. So it's and everybody can tell you, well, I'd have done this and I'd have done that. Oh, that's bullshit. You don't know until you get in the lion cage. You don't know what you're gonna do. Like Greg says.
Yeah, Roger. That back on what I was going to say a while ago about the first deer I had stole. That was an eye-opening experience there. I mean, I was in that ladder stand on that upper field. I was down there by myself, and I thought, well, I'm gonna squeeze in a hunt. Like it was gun season. I was in there with my Browning 30-06, and it's a two-man stand, so it's kind of like a bench seat. It's wide enough for two people, and I'm on the end of this field, and that field is. I'd wound up, the field was about 250 yards long. And I'm sitting there and, I got my rifle. You got a shooting rail, just a square steel tubing that, about this high that you can lay your arm on to hold your gun steady. Well, I'm sitting there with the buttstock on my leg and the rifle is pointing out this way, laying on that rail. And I've got a jacket draped over it so it's soft. Well, that way, all I've got to do is just, if I see a deer I don't want to shoot, I just lean up and get on my rifle. So I'm sitting there and I'm leaning back and I'm, hunting. You're not up there looking around. You're just cutting your eyes left and right. And I'm watching this whole field. And deer have a special way of just appearing sometimes. Because, you can look, you can be looking over this 2.5 acre field. And you focus on that end and your eyes are cutting the whole field, looking all the way around it. And I just looked all the way around it. And I look over here to this corner. And about the time my eyes go back, there's this really nice buck. And that son of a gun is like 20 feet out in the field. And he's broadside. And I can see his head's down. He's biting the grass. His horns are sticking out. And about the time my eyes focus back on him, I'm like, oh, shit. So I just ease the rifle, ease it up. I get over, I get on him. Well, I'm seeing his horns, going out this way. He never picked his head up. He's chewing the grass, so his horns are out. And I can see his horns are snow white, and they look like they're this tall. I mean, he's a good deer. It was, I don't know if y'all probably can't see the one up here on the wall right here, but he was that big, except his horns were snow white. And I thought, oh, there's a shooter right there. So I ease the safety off and take my breath and get on him. And I was shooting him right behind the front shoulder. Well, I pull the trigger and this deer looked like you hit him with a car. I mean, just bam, he just flops. Well, he's laying there and I kind of pick my head up off the scope and I'm looking at him and he's kicking and he turns his whole body 180 degrees. And he like rolls over. He's on his side. And he's kicking, so he's like he's running in a circle. But he turns 180 degrees. His head's back toward the bushes, and he kind of rolls over. And he rolls from his side up on his belly, and he's slaying his head. And about the time I drop back in the scope, because I'm thinking if he starts to stand up, I'm going to go ahead and do the ethical thing. I'm going to put him down. About the time I thought, and I look through the scope. His back legs, his butt comes up, and it's like his hooves dig in. And I watch this deer go from laying flat. He raises up, and he goes, whoa, and just lunges. It's like he kicks. And it looked like a cartoon. He just lunges and goes out of sight that quick. There was no way for a second shot. And I'm like, oh, my God. But I noticed that his front legs are like not wanting to do anything. And he just flies through the air and goes out of sight. So I sat there a minute, flipped my safety back on. I'm like, well, he's hit hard. And I sat there for a few minutes. And I'm thinking, okay, I light me a smoke. I'm sitting there and I smoked about half a cigarette. And I climbed down, get my rifle, got it just kind of hanging up. No, it didn't hang on my shoulder, laid across my arm. Anyway, I'm walking across this field. This deer is like 175 yards or so. And like I told you all about the growed up cutover, all this vegetation, where the deer are traveling, instead of just open trail through the woods, it looks like a culvert. I mean, it's about, this high, like be about here on me. It's like just a hole where they eat it out, and it's like going into a pipe. It's all just like a hole. Well, I get about probably 30 feet from where this deer was at when I shot him. And it looks like you had shot a can of pink spray paint. There is blood, pink blood, and it's foamy. So I know it's lung tissue or lung blood. And then I find actual pieces, big as my pinky finger, of actual lung tissue. So I know, look, this deer's been hit with a 30-06 through the lungs. He's not going nowhere, and there's blood and everything. And then I'll cut my eyes over to the sage grass at the end of the edge of the field where a bush hog get left a little path of sage, like a border. And that brown sage is up, probably waist high. It looks like you took this same pink blood and took a mop and drug it through it like a giant paintbrush this wide. It's just coated. Well, I step over there, and then it's going in this hole. I lean down and I look in it. About 25 feet in this little narrow path through this stuff, this deer's laying on this side. I can see his butt, and I can see his horns laying away from me, his white belly. I've got my rifle. I step over the bloody sage grass, and I kind of duck walk. I duck down and kind of crouch and go through. Well, once you go about 3 feet, you can kind of open up, stand up, because everything's shaded out and it's kind of open in there a little bit. I walk up to this deer, and he's laying there on his side. He's not breathing. The rib cage is not moving. I stand there and watch him a minute. He's not wiggling. He's not doing anything. I step up, take my boot, kind of bump him on the butt just to make sure this deer's not moving. He's not doing anything. So I'll take my rifle, put it on my shoulder, and the path is probably, 3 feet wide. I step like my left leg over this deer by his belly, and I reach over and I grab his horns, because when he fell, one side of his rack went up in the pine straw and the leaves. I pull his head up and pick it up, and I'm turning his horns around looking at him. This deer was about an 18-inch spread, horns about this high. Well, I thought he was a really nice 8-point for Alabama. He didn't have any of the brow tines, the eye guards, and he just had 3 on each side, and he just, down here closer to his head, he just had 2 little bumps. So he was a really good 6-point. To me, he was a wonderful buck. He was a wonderful deer. And I was tickled to death. I mean, I was proud. I'm looking at this deer, his tongue's hanging out. He's not breathing. He's not moving. He's not kicking. He's wiggly. He's dead. This deer's done. And I am in the middle of this cutover at this upper field. Dude, it would have took a person, I don't know what, to have got in there. And the only way in and out is the road that I'm on, where my truck's parked at this gate, which is, say 30 yards across the field, turn, go in the road, 200 yards out to the truck. I just lay the deer's head back down. He's 20, 25 feet out of the field, right here in this. He's in the shade. I walk out. I go to my truck. I unlock that old noisy chain on the gate, swing the gate open, get in the truck, drive it out in the field, and I back up to where all this blood's at. I get out of my truck. I leave my rifle in the truck because I've got a 357 on. This is daylight. I'm not plenty daylight. I get out, walk to the back of the truck, open the tailgate, and let it down. I take about 3 steps. Here's all the blood in the sage grass that I just seen like 10 minutes ago, before. I step over the sage grass, and when I lean down to duck walk under there, I look up, and that deer is not there no more. He's gone. There's no deer. There's no deer there. And I just freeze. And I start looking, and I'm listening, and I'm going, where's my deer? This ain't good. Where's my deer? All right. I finally reached and slide this pistol out, and I couldn't help it. I step on in there, and I walk up. Where this deer's laying, there's a puddle. I'm talking about, it's big around as a trash can lid. It looks like the blood is 1/4 inch deep, just coagulated pink blood. This deer is gone. There's no way a person got that deer. There's no way a coyote or anything got that deer. They ain't happening. There was no, the pine straw wasn't even like if I'd grabbed that deer and started to drag it out to the truck, I'd had to drug it. We're talking about probably 185-pound buck. He wasn't super huge, but he wasn't no little bitty one. He was probably 185-pound on the hoof. I would have drug him. Well, you know what that's going to do, Roger? You've drugged deer through the woods. It's going to push all that pine straw, and there'll be lumps of it, and then I'll go over it. No, no. Whatever got that deer looked like it just picked it up and left. Never did find it. Never did find any sign. Which now look, I didn't go plundering around, and because I knew I had a really good idea of what got my deer. I wasn't going to stomp through the weeds trying to get it back. I was just like, well, chalk that one up for them. They got that one. So. Yeah,
I mean, man, we could walk in there and without knowing what you did and look at the evidence and say, well, somebody got a deer right here, and then they drug him back that way because you know it's simple, you know. But and that's another thing, something big enough to pick that deer up and walk off with it.
Well, if you're talking about coyotes or bear or anything like that. I mean, especially coyotes, it's going to be a mess, right? Because they shred everything. Bear is going to drag it, but you're going to see the marks on that. But if a person dragged it too, what did you say about 185 pounds? I mean, holy shit, it's hard to drag a 125-pound deer very far. You're going to leave marks everywhere. And what you're talking about, if I'm understanding you correctly, is there was a deer there. It was dead as a doornail. There's a big old puddle of blood, lung blood, fresh blood.
Yep.
And you're saying nothing was disturbed and just the deer was gone, like it got abducted by a UFO.
It was like it floated off like a balloon.
Right.
And the thing is, y'all, I mean, for people that don't hunt, when you walk up on this, that's a dangerous situation if the deer's not dead.
Yes.
The first thing a hunter looks at, of course, he's walking up there. Of course, you're going to look at the rib cage, see if it's breathing. But the second thing you look at is the eyes. If they're closed, you better back up, because if they're open, and you can tell when it's gone. It's just the same thing with anything.
A tongue laying out, lolled over to the side, and it not moving. Well, didn't you say you grabbed it by the horns and kind of looked at them? Yeah.
I reached down I'm standing at its rib cage between, like its legs are sticking out. I'm between them, and I reach past its neck and I roll its head. So I curl this deer up. I mean, I've got him bent nearly double, pull his head up this high off the ground, and I'm turning his head. Yeah. I mean, like I said, he wasn't breathing. His eyes were open. This deer's dead as a biscuit and laying back down.
This ain't the deer. No, it was the one that your dad shot that got snatched, and then you got part of it back. That's in Bill White's.
Yeah, can you? Yes. Yeah, can you get into that part of the story? Because that right there.
No, that's further down the road.
Well, I know, but that amazes me because, that's showing some kind of truce type thing, you know, with what happened with that. Because
we got to wait for the Gates story where he's up there. That's why there's going to be 3 or 4 parts, y'all.
Roger, tell him if he wanted it done a certain way, he should have hosted this shit himself, not to tell you how to do your job.
Shut up, squirrel. Fine, I'm back to being quiet.
Ditto. No, I'm kidding. But Greg had, you know, of course, we've heard a lot of stuff that he probably hadn't told, but the one thing I keep going back to with all of this stuff is, yeah, it does things like this, but it also does things to show emotion or that it maybe they want to get along with you. And you've run into that after you accidentally made peace with them. You can tell that later. But that's those stories that I heard from Greg and other people started changing my mind on what they might be and how their intellect is. If you listen to the hidden details in some of these stories, it's pretty amazing. You know, like people say, you know, they left them a gift or whatever. With just that story that he'll tell later, that was intentional and really amazing. So anyway, I'll back off, but it's the more you learn about these things, That's what's scary is the intelligence, I guess, to me.
Well, Roger, one thing I do want to touch on right now too is for for all these people that are watching this or gonna watch this. You know, if I spun this camera around, you know, I've got a 4 foot tall, solid aluminum piece of sheeting. It's like a 1/4 inch thick on the wall. It's a Bigfoot outline. It's the same one that's here on my arm on this wall. And for all my Bigfoot and research families that's been here, you know, everybody autographs that sign. And y'all, there's probably 40 names on that sign. And, you know, the amazing part is, like, all of y'all, the Misty, Spencer, and Roger, y'all have been here and got to experience something here yourself. And that's worth its weight in gold for me, because when I try to tell people my encounters, I'm like, well, if you don't believe me, ask so-and-so. Or if you don't believe them, ask so-and-so. Because you think of how many people has been here at my place and had the encounters.
And listen, being kind of funny a little bit, you know, if somebody that you don't know is telling you a story and they're saying a Bigfoot stole the deer, well, that's the perfect opportunity for it to be a 14-pointer and 2 foot wide. You know what I mean? Greg's giving you, know,
Yeah, that's
like
correct.
the fish that got away, right? So
Yeah.
that's a good detail too. You know, there's no exaggeration, y'all. I grew up, my dad, we didn't exaggerate. If I told him I saw a 6-pointer, it's probably going to be a 5 or 6-pointer. I counted the points, you know, in off season, or well, it's about 18 inches wide, or 20, or 16, or if it's 12. We always told the truth. So that's the way we grew up. I didn't try to make it sound more, you know, like add to it. And the biggest thing is because I'm not smart enough to remember that. So if you tell the truth, it's always going to be the same story. But and that's kind of a joke, but that's the way some people do. They'll you know, well, Greg says, well, I don't have it here on the wall. Hell, you know, I can make it a 16-pointer. So,
That's
but
very.
but you know, I never thought about this until I met y'all and I heard your story about the missing deer. I shot an 8-pointer one time and dropped him probably 50 or 60 yards, and he was so hammer dead that I walked back to the truck and changed, took all that hot, you know, it was kind of warm, so I took the extra off. I knew it was about to get to work, right? So I take the extra off where I can have range of motion, all that, and I'm in no hurry. And I go over there, and he's absolutely gone. Same thing, blood in the spot where it hit, white hair, you know, not white hair, but you know what I'm saying, just hair.
Yeah.
And you get over there and you're like, it wide open field with, it's kind of like a horseshoe. There was woods like in a horseshoe shape. And I'm looking around like, where did he go? Because I'm scoping him and I'm looking at all the signs. Well, he's down. I never thought about that. I'm not saying that's what happened, but the odds of that thing getting up and walking off were slim to none. And the
Roger,
odds,
that deer where he was laying, that deer had a hole. It was big as a quarter right behind that shoulder, and it was just frothy pink blood foamed out that hole.
Yeah.
And he's dead. I mean, he's 100% dead. And like I said, I gave him, from the time I shot this deer till I got to him, was probably 10 minutes. And he was absolutely expired. I mean, there's no way. Now, I've shot deer before. Them hit the ground like a sack of potatoes. You may give them 2 or 3 minutes, and then next thing you know, they start flopping and they get up and try to run. I've had that. I believe you me, I've had that happen.
yeah.
But this deer was laying there for several minutes. I walk down there, I see him, I go to him, I pick his head up.
Yeah.
His eyes are open. Like I said, his tongue's hanging out. His rib cage is not moving. This deer is 100% dead. Without a doubt, he's dead.
And the reason he's going into high detail with that, y'all, because somebody's going to say, "Oh, it probably wasn't dead." But even let's say even if it wasn't, and he went back to the truck, and it woke up. There's going to be signs that it stood up and walked off too. I mean, so
Yeah.
and that's why we sometimes we over explain things, because we know there are people out there like, that didn't happen. It was probably this or probably that. But that's the first thing you do is you check, make sure, because you don't want to get hurt by them either. In their last breath, he would have tried to kick you. He would have made a sound. But once that tongue's laying out, you're good to go. So anyway,
Mhm.
We keep harping on Wood's experience, but it's just, try to remove doubt from people. Look, when we do things, we do it the right way. We make sure we're doing it the right way. And when you go back and the thing's gone, how did it happen? And I've heard people talk about seeing Bigfoot carrying dead deer and all that. And there's no telling how many stories around this country of people having them go missing, same way that you have, but don't know what it could have been. And to Spencer's point, I know coyotes, I don't think they would show up that quick because you're still in the area. But 185 pounds, they have to grab and pull backwards, and if they were doing that, you would have still heard them. When you went back in that short amount of time, you could have heard them over there growling at each other, doing whatever. They wouldn't have drug it off 3 miles. It would have been just out of sight. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
The same point to be made about a lot of what he has said. Like, for example, the Wood Knocks, whenever he drove down to the end of the road, there's been a bunch of people that have been to that spot and seen what he was talking about. There's no other way in and out of this area that Greg is describing. It's the one road, and the road dead ends at the lake, not very far past the gate going into the property. Okay. So unless somebody was in a boat, but even then, the chances of somebody constantly coming out there day after day after day harassing him, it's just on its face. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. They don't have a lot of bear there. They have coyote, but I mean, bear would be slim to none. What he's talking about with the deer right there. How long did you say it was? 10 minutes from the time you picked it up and looked at it and went to get the truck and come back down there?
Ever how long it took me to walk, basically 200, we'll give it for the doubt, say 250 yards total, walking, unlock a gate, swing it open, get in my truck, and drive right back.
Yeah.
So 10 minutes would be a stretch.
And,
all right.
And I have to point out, Debbie Porch came through for us. She commented, Greg, you sure that deer wasn't dead? But I hope we're not over explaining, but we're trying to look. If you're a hunter and it's your first deer or two, you might make that mistake, but but the experienced people won't make that. And that I saw a comment. It's actually pretty cool. If you do harvest like a doe or whatever, like an air tag, that in some areas that would be a good idea to see how far it went.
Yeah.
I'm not getting all into that. Oh me, it's no Greg.
I promise.
There you go.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what it did. If you could you had an air tag, just shove it up in the hole, the body cavity, and just see what it did. That would be kind of cool.
All right, Misty, you have any questions
some of
for
these
Greg?
right quick.
All right, what we got question-wise, Misty?
Country song.
There you go. It'd be a sad one, Roger.
And I think that's kind of why we kind of come together naturally, because if I call Spencer and tell him I saw something, you know, he asked the tough questions or whatever. And if I don't know, I said, I don't know that part because I was focused on this or that. You know, Misty's ruthless, but
Listen, I try to be the person. Roger is too. I have to say, I think me and Roger are more like the grounded ones of the group, and we have to keep Greg and Spencer in line.
and I think Spencer is. I think Spencer is. And
What?
I think
You just touch and go with it.
yeah. Spencer does it a different way. I'll put it that way. I think Misty sometimes messing with you make you doubt yourself.
Oh, y'all wouldn't believe the shit I do to them. No, I haven't.
That is true.
They really wouldn't. They would not believe it.
Yeah, she's a master at mind games.
It's funny because I'll do stuff and I'll have them just, and then I have to tell them because I feel bad. So
I'll get in there, man.
look, did y'all see that? Hold on. Oh, I think I done erased it. Bruce Mann said we needed a Netflix series.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if the world's ready for all that.
Yeah, we take over cable.
First episode.
Yeah. And y'all look, we do a second part, third, fourth, whatever. It'll be more exciting, y'all, because I've got plenty to tell.
Yeah, and
this was the preamble. This was him getting started whenever he was just figuring out stuff was happening.
Yeah.
This is not all the shit that he's seen. We haven't even talked about the man cave yet.
Oh no. I mean, and the thing, he's sitting right there, and he said something about a strong cabin or whatever. And Greg knows he's had them push on his wall before. If they wanted to come in, they could come in.
The thing about it, Roger, what I've seen, these windows and these doors, they're not going to fit. They're going to have to. They're the ones I've seen. If they come through that door, they're going to have to turn sideways and wedge through it. There ain't no way.
Same. I've noticed the same thing. And then that house that Mark and Becca Green, I met them at. I just wanted to show them since they were up here. That house has been vacant probably for 70 or 80 years, just guessing by the looks of it. And you're right. But the thing about that, the lady told me she heard something run out of it. There's siding and torn off and holes in the walls for access and exits.
Yeah. Man, that'd be, but dude, I'm not, look, I mean, I'm not going to lie to people. Look, I've got a scenario that I run, that's just the way my mind works because I overthink everything. But I've got scenarios of, okay, if one tries to come in that back door, what's my go-to? Or if one tries to come in this door, what's my go-to? Because if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail.
Before, if we end the show here, before you get into the more shocking shit, can't wait for the motorcycle story. And you got to do a good job on the motorcycle story this time. Like all the details. But if we end it here, what was your thought process like at that point right there with all of the stuff that you had experienced up till then? What? 3 days.
I'm sorry, Roger. I didn't mean to kill you.
Let's take the damn comment down. Great.
I never thought I'd hear those words in that order.
A pickle chicken, Misty Bean, a pickle chicken. That'll be a great text layer tonight, 3D.
Oh, yes.
What was your thought process as far as, so you were kind of figuring, you thought it was a booger, right? But you kept going out there and hunting and everything. How comfortable were you getting worried? Were you getting nervous? Like, especially after one stole the deer, what was your mindset?
I wasn't worried at all, Spencer. I was scared shitless.
But how did it change the way or influenced the way you hunt now after all of this?
It made a difference of me going to the woods 45 minutes before daylight and staying until it was pitch black dark when I left.
Yeah.
And where I went from carrying, my rifle holds 5 rounds and I'd have like 5 or 6 more rounds in my pocket. And like my revolver, it held, I'd have it like one speed loader, 7 rounds in it. So I had 14 rounds of that. And we'll say 11 rounds of 30-06. Now, if I grab that holster and showed it to you, what I sling over me, and thank God it spreads the weight out. That holster I've got has got pouches on it. Not only have I got that tactical, we're talking about, $1,500 plus tactical revolver. When I put it on, it's got a bandolero of extra ammo here, and just the holster itself's got like 70 extra rounds on it. So I've got plenty of ammo. 30-06, I carry at least 30 rounds with me. Look, I can do a pretty good skirmish before I run dry. So yeah, and look, flashlights where I used to carry the little, not the LED, but the little regular old AA mini mag light was what I had. Oh no, no, I carry really good flashlights and multiples and extra batteries and. And I'm really more on when I go to the woods, I make damn sure that somebody that's, responsible or trustworthy knows where I'm at when I'm going to be back. I don't just, hey, I'm going hunting and then I'm gone. No, I'm like, hey, I'm going over here to the big field, or I'm going to go hunt the pea patch field or whatever.
Do you have any tree stands? I know we've been all over the place and I kind of know the answer. Do you have any? I've seen old tree stands that haven't been used in years, or you just use the shooting houses in the fields. Now I became a field hunter mostly. Yeah. I will go in the woods and all, but did that change where one of the big your hunting houses are built pretty sturdy? I did notice that.
Yeah, they're built strong. Yeah, they're built real strong. They're on power poles. But yeah, it's Roger, when you're in a shooting house and you got something throwing rocks and sticks and they're hitting the back wall and they're throwing rocks, that big, and they're out there huffing and grunting and growling at you and breaking limbs, and you realize there's 3 of them and not just one. That's when you're thankful you're in a hunting house that's built really sturdy and you're armed to the hilt. The one thing it really changed on me a lot over the years, I quit hunting out of a climbing stand. I used to hunt out of a climbing tree stand a lot. One of the main factors that I felt so, I don't know I guess felt just like I was tied down or hemmed up, because when you're toting this stand, first off, that stand's 30 pounds or so. You get there and it's strapped to your back. It's bundlesome. You carry that thing out there and you got to take all this time that your mind's preoccupied putting it on this tree and making sure that everything's right. Well, it's hard to pay attention to what's going on to you around in the woods around you while you're focused, because if you don't put this on there right, first off, that thing, if you don't pin the chain or the cable right, it could turn loose and dump you out. You got to make sure it's adjusted right, because the tree's bigger at the bottom than it is the higher up you go. So you got to get the camber on it just right. Well, you're preoccupied. Well, you're not sitting there holding your gun. You don't have it on your back. You either got to lay it over here on the ground or, stand it up on a tree. So your attention is focused here. Well, trying to do that, and you're worried about, shit, is something coming up behind me? It takes too much of your time. Well, then when you get in this thing, you got to climb up over in it, and it's really not safe to put your rifle on your back, which, like I said, I've got my pistol, but, I've got a 25-foot cord or rope that I attach on my rifle with it laying on the ground, and I always, pull the bolt back, lock it open so it's 100% safe. Well, then you've got to, like a super inchworm, move the top, lock it down, pull the bottom, lock it down, up, just keep climbing. Well, here you are, you're strapped to, your feet are strapped in these stirrups, and you're holding this top part. So you're tied to this tree in one spot. there's not a quick getaway. You're tied down, him down. It's kind of like being tied to something. Kind of like when they say that you're going to sacrifice something to a dragon. You go change somebody to a pole, and the dragon's coming. You're tied down. Well, what are you going to do?
Like, I mean, you run away on crutches.
Exactly. So, and then when you're in that stand, there's no quick exit. You've got to come down, and it's going to take when you're a chunky dude like I've always been, it ain't a fireman pole. You can't just zip to the bottom and take off running. It takes a minute, and it makes noise. Even, I've climbed hundreds and hundreds of trees, and even me being as silent as I could be, it still makes noise. So it's going to alert something that's going to know you're there. It's just really hard to climb, whether it's, if you put that stand and let the teeth hit it, just applying your weight softly, as it's cutting into the bark starts crunching. You can't help it. It cannot be avoided. So I felt like I was tied down. It's like I'm in a fish bowl and all this shit circling around me. So it kind of changed me climbing in a climbing tree stand. Now, a ladder stand, I can go to the bottom of it. I throw my rifle on my back most of the time now, just sling it over. Well, you hit the bottom of that stand, boom, 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 you're up. I don't have to, my attention's not focused right here for several minutes. So yeah, it changed me hunting out of a climbing stand big time. I hadn't climbed, which now me jacking my leg up, messing my ankle up, it would be really hard for me to ever be able to use a climber again. But man, I hadn't used a climbing stand in probably 12, 14 years. I got to where I didn't feel comfortable doing it. A buddy of mine wound up, he fell out of a stand and lost his life, sadly. And, I've seen a lot of people really hurt. It's just, they're dangerous. I mean, you can be as careful as you can be. It's still a recipe for disaster. And I'm an advocate. I don't care what you're doing hunting wise. Please get you a safety harness, a safety vest, tie off. Me doing first responder work, law enforcement and rescue squad, fire department. We've had to go rescue people hanging upside down, broke legs. It's just dangerous. So, but yeah, for me, it was just, I realized that my attention and me being on high alert because I know what's in the woods, and I'm trying to put this stand together, and I'm focusing on, hey, is something sneaking up behind me? Yeah, it was just balance it out and go, well, it's not worth it. So,
yeah, I mean, and I could tell that. I mean, the first time we went into that field and I saw how you built those hunting houses, I mean, I didn't say anything about it, but I was like,
yeah,
I was like, yeah, I feel you, brother.
It's not a deer lounge.
No. And yeah, I went through the same thing. It's just, you'd be crazy not to. We might not be in any danger. I understand that, but dadgummit, when you finally see one, you can't help it. Changes you. There's things. Look, I never thought I'd have to look both ways before I stepped out of a door at night, but at Greg's man cave.
Yeah.
And I talked to him like, "Hey, we're going to the truck. Don't throw nothing at us." But
Roger, how many places you go that they keep a 12 gauge tactical pump shotgun loaded with slugs and buckshot in the bathroom?
No, I went through looking around, and I'm like, okay, I'll run to this room. I got that. If I go over here,
Yeah,
it's the same way in my house. Not to the extreme yours is, but it's close.
yeah.
But that's another thing. You're talking about trauma. We had a country store in the late 70s, and people thought we carried money home. Some people would get, drunk or mean and want to come try to break into the house. And I've lived through stuff like that. And, my dad had to handle it, or I had to handle it once. And the biggest thing is once you get caught unprepared, you don't want to get caught unprepared again. So you do everything you can to,
Well, it's just like the age-old saying, Roger. I'd rather have it not needed as to need it not have it.
Yep, absolutely. And look, we walk in there, and Peyton, the first night we watched our show, he sent me a text. I said, "Hey, you need to check." It was my first night in chat, and I was like, "Hey, you need to check the Woodwalkers out." And he's like, "All right." And I'm not saying anything about Greg Spencer Misty, Peyton sent a text. He said, "Dude, I like this Greg guy. look at everything on his walls." I'm like, "Yeah, y'all get along good." But I didn't know we were going to all become friends, But
well, that's where you're wrong, Roger. We ain't friends. You ain't my friend. We're family, brother.
I know. And it's been fun, y'all. Like I said, we joke probably too much. I don't think you can joke too much, but when we talk to y'all about these things, we get a little serious, and it's just us wanting to spread information, but we don't want to say anything too that's going to get you hurt, because I've done enough stupid crap myself. I'll come home and question why'd I do that? Y'all, I don't think Netflix could handle us or y'all.
No, it's all of us. You get on it too whenever you're on this channel.
Yeah.
You're all behaved on your show.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Roger made that song. I walked the line.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, Roger.
I have to.
Roger's got a good show, y'all. I'm so proud of him.
I just thank you. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I think, and I don't want to try to figure it out, because if I figure it out, I may not.
Well, if you take it too serious, you're not going to enjoy it, I guess.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's good that everybody cuts up. You got to have a serious side, but it's good to have the jokes and the laugh and everything, which is why we roll Misty out once in a while for her to get everybody going.
Turn her loose.
Oh man, I swear, y'all, no kidding. I know we've said this like 1,000 times. One of these days, I know Spencer literally keeps every single text that we send.
If you only knew.
Y'all can't say squat. They all the time griping about me and Misty type or texting messages. Yesterday, I run my bulldozer for about 3 hours. About 3 hours. I looked at my phone, got off my bulldozer, look at my phone, and I swear to y'all, it was missed messages. It's 525 messages.
She starts shit.
And 12 of them was, "Where's Greg?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were like, what the hell? I even sent him a message and I was like, "Greg, okay, now I'm starting to get worried. Where the hell you at?"
Oh.
I knew he wasn't going to miss out on the fun. I mean, we were in rare form last night.
Roger was making custom videos and sending them in.
Oh, y'all in trouble now. Yeah, I couldn't believe it did my dialogue. I was kind of pushing the limits, and when it came through, I'm like, uh-oh. It's gonna be fun.
If they would make a Joe Dirt, if they would make a Joe Dirt part 2, me and Squirrel are in it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
Robert.
Oh yes, the real Misty comes out now. Hey, speaking of that, you said we was gonna do a night house tonight.
Oh,
Hey, look here. I did not say that now. I said possibly.
Yes, you did. I saw it. I read it.
Yeah. See.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spencer, you read it
Put
too.
me on the spot, so we have to do one. I see how that shit played out.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You start this cool
We'll see. It
show.
depends on what
and
time I get done cooking my chicken. I got to go get my chicken.
Pickle chicken.
Just go with that for a title. How to beat a pickled chicken. Yeah.
Don't church it up, 3D. He said it's pronounced Dirty.
No doubt.
Dear Tay. Yeah.
Dear Tay. Yes.
Greg will have to do a part 2 and probably a part 3. We do want to get a lot of the detail in, so it's not like on the other shows where he's pressed for time and he's got 3 hours and trying to compress it all. Because, I mean, you mean
he's got an hour and he goes 3 hours?
Well,
I know it's hilarious. I love like when Greg's on a new show, and I like watching the chat because it's like they've never like heard his stories, and it's like everybody's so just like blown away because
Well, that's part of the reason for this, because everybody is like, where can I see one of the Greg Howse interviews that talks about a lot of the stuff? And you got to look on all the different channels. And even whenever we first had him on, it was still we didn't go quite into all of the detail. And we'll try not to interrupt as much on the next couple.
Spencer, think about this. Think about in the last 3 or 4 years, how much stuff I've had in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Well, how much stuff you've had since because in the beginning, you weren't really, you were more of a private person. You would go on a show and not have your name, and you would tell some of the encounters, but you wouldn't tell all the details. But in the time since, like, I know that you knew Kumbo like long before we met you and everything, but think about how many people you've had come to the man cave and have been there with you through a lot of shit in the past 4 or 5 years that can, it's not just you saying it, it's you and a bunch of other people that can vouch for, hey, we were all there and we saw it and all this weird shit happened. His man cave is no joke, y'all. His man cave is a real deal.
If Flat Rock gets scared, something went down. He was white as a ghost.
Y'all look, that's the thing about it. Flat Rock's had so many encounters, and he got here and it shook him, which that would have shook me. That would have shook anybody. What happened to him here?
Well, I mean, Squirrel, the first time she was there, just on that recording, Mark, you need to finish I believe her exact words were, pinch it off and get out here. But you need to finish what you're doing. Mark.
I wasn't scared. I was excited because I knew what was going to happen. Everybody was gone. And as soon as he left, nobody was hearing anything. I mean, like, Spencer was wanting to hear something, somebody couldn't stand it. And it was like, it was just messing with him. Every time he would go in, shit would start popping off, wouldn't it, Greg? And as soon as he'd come out, it would stop. It was like it didn't. He wanted to hear stuff so bad.
The stuff at Greg's house hates me. As soon as I would go inside, it would happen. And then we went to the damn recordings, though. Remember, both of us had it recorded, and it fucked up on the recordings.
I did have it though. I've got it, and I've actually got it. I can post it on the Woodwalkers. Mark run it through the spectrograph for me, and so I do have that.
I still
wish
we
both had one going on the front and back porch. Spencer's I had 2 recorders going actually, and both of them that was on the back porch. Isn't that where you had yours?
Yeah.
It didn't. They both shut off, and I guess or did you accidentally? I don't know what happened. Anyways,
no, it was there, and I listened to it, and then I went to play it back for one of y'all, and it was all like static. And then the next time it was just gone. It wasn't even on the recorder.
That's what happened. But the recorder itself, the whole recorder's messed up. Literally anything you try to record on it now has got that static. But I luckily had one sitting on the front porch too to try to catch anything outside, and that one caught it.
Yeah. I wish we had recorded when you pulled up out here in that dang Jeep and it sounded like we was at the zoo.
I ain't never heard nothing like that. That's the only time I've ever heard that.
It was wild.
Freaks me out. Don't worry about it. All right, y'all. Well, we will be back on for another part with Greg. Maybe next Sunday. Depends. The guest I had lined up for last weekend, whenever I busted my ankle, he couldn't do today. I don't think he can do next weekend. So Greg part 2 will probably be next weekend, y'all.
Okay.
When's Spencer's turn?
After Greg's done.
No,
and
that
then
ain't it works. No. Look, y'all made me go first.
We had to get you to go first.
You said if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. And then you gave me shit the whole first hour. Y'all wouldn't even.
And besides, after Greg's done,
out of it. That shit ain't happening.
After Greg's done, I can't be a follow-up act to that. So we're gonna have to go 5 or 6 shows, and maybe then.
He set y'all up.
Get them.
So
Get the hard stuff out of the way first. Get Squirrel to go first, and then get Greg to go. But somebody else has got to talk to Greg and get all the details out. That's the way.
Greg.
To start.
All right, so
Greg. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say. So Mark Green's on with Chad and Erica tonight. Is Sherry and Donna having anything today?
They're already on. I guess they come on at 4 today.
Okay.
So
I want to ask a question before we leave. Greg, so how did you end up with this bunch? I mean, I don't want the whole story, but like, did you get a phone call out of the blue? Did you, I mean,
Yeah, Spencer sent me some like fan mail or something. I don't remember.
that's what it was.
handwritten with a little heart, he had Spencer and a little heart at the end of it.
Maybe Valentine's.
Spencer talked about you, Greg, at first.
I don't remember it being a Valentine's Day card or nothing, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he wrote you several, just didn't send them.
Now look, y'all, I can tell you how I got here. It was the grace of the good Lord putting us together. That's all it could have been.
Now we're moving to the Hallmark Channel.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm just interested because, like, to this day, I still don't know how this happened, but I know we know the story about Misty, and then when Spencer said he'd seen, or heard you talk and didn't know who you were. Yeah. Spencer, how did you find out who he was?
I had heard his interviews on a couple different channels, but I didn't know who he was. And then just by the grace of God, because of Larry and Mark at Sawdust, which I was part of that, because of them knowing Kumbo, they got hooked up with Greg. And whenever they had Greg on, and I was sitting there doing the show with them. I was moderating on the show, but I didn't know who Greg was. And he started talking. I was like, holy shit, this is the guy that I've heard a couple times before. And, this guy right here, I want to talk to him. So as soon as the show was done, I was like, put me in contact with him. So then I reached out and started talking to Greg, and one thing led to another. I met him at Mark Green's, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been wonderful, man. Ain't no doubt. It's been one of the best things ever happened to me, is all I can tell y'all.
Well, even even the late night talks with the guys, a lot of times I can't get on there. I try to go, a little bit. We have some pretty good conversations, and just like River comes on last night right before his radio show, showed us the studio and all that. And I mean, it's more than fun. It's comforting to have people you can talk to. Greg for president.
Greg for president. Team Howse.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Thank you for watching us today. We actually at one point we were close to 180 while we were live, which was impressive.
Oh my God.
Look, y'all. We'll do that do the night owls tonight. I expect some of y'all to prise your eyeballs open, stay awake, at least jump in for a minute.
Yeah, I've talked to Donnie before. His first encounter story was matter of fact, I believe that's
Donnie's.
Yeah, I
Donnie's
think that's
he's come to our meet and greets before.
Well, that's Flat Rock's cousin. He's Flat Rock's cousin, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but yeah.
Well, Flat Rock told me, and I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, we're kin."
Why would I?
Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Who did you say?
Huh?
Who did you say, Roger? Was his cousin?
Donnie Miller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But and what's funny is how some of these people we've all met each other, and how we kind of know some of the same people or been around each other and or there's connections. It's crazy. We can get into that later, but
Yeah. Another piece of the puzzle.
It's
mhm.
it's weird that whenever you get to talking to somebody in this field, they're like, "Oh, I know this guy and this guy and this person or that person." You're like, "Oh, I know them too," and you're like, "Well, I was on a camp out with them here." Well, shit. 6 months later, we were on a camp out at that same piece of land with other people and everything. It's just weird. Everybody knows everybody, even if you haven't met them in person.
Oh man. Well, y'all let me know if y'all doing the night owls. If y'all want me,
Well, yeah. We'll get
Yeah.
Spencer on there if we can keep him up at like.
That ain't gonna happen, but I'll go
You know
back
what?
and watch
He's got nothing
anything.
else to do. Y'all, listen, he's all laid up. Let me tell you what happened. I'm going to tell on you right quick because
Uh-oh.
he tries to act like he's just always so busy that he just can't never do nothing and talk to us no more, and he can't ever get on
What?
no chats.
Wait,
I'm
why are you pissed off? Why are you getting on me? It's at the end of the show. I ain't done nothing to you. I ain't done nothing to you.
Abel Knievel to downside the side.
Well, I mean, none
That
I
wasn't
won't
me.
it.
That wasn't me.
Yeah.
My kid did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Was you screaming skinny pedal? Was you screaming skinny pedal at him?
No, I was screaming, hit the damn brake.
Yeah.
Y'all, Spencer had an accident, if you don't know, and he already was hurt, and so then he hurt himself again because, like,
I didn't do it.
I don't even know. Did you think he was going
Get
to
your
pull
damn details straight.
Stop?
He was an innocent occupant.
I got tendonitis in my right foot of the Achilles heel. And y'all, holy shit, does that hurt. Like, I've heard people talk about gout. I've never had gout. I know a bunch of people that have, and I know that gout hurts. I'm not doubting it. But this hurt so bad, it hurt. And you can't walk on it anywhere close to it. Nothing like that. And I had crutches because the tendonitis flare-up thing has been going on for a year and a half or 2 years. I fell off of a ladder. Well, the ladder come out away from the wall too much, and it was gonna fall. And I jumped off the ladder, but my foot got caught in between the rung of the ladder on the very bottom of it. And that's whenever the tendonitis thing started. It got swollen, sore, and it hurt, but it was like in the bridge of my foot. And then for the past year and a half, 2 years, it'll flare up every 6 months, and I can walk for a little bit. Well, this time it happened, and this was a week and a half ago, I think, something like that. And it happened in my Achilles tendon. And I was hobbling around on crutches. Well, finally, about 3 days ago, I was able to walk a little bit again. I was just starting to get better. And my youngest daughter, that is 11, she's been driving me around on one of the side-by-sides because I can't walk. So I'm like, take me down to the garden so I can look at this or look at that and go in the back on the trails. And, this branch needs to be trimmed, shit like that. Well, anyway, we were coming back and she's just now learning to drive the side-by-side. And she was getting cocky and full of herself. And she was stomping on that gas, and then she let off of it. And she went to make a turn out of nowhere. Like a hard 90-degree turn, doing like 20 mile an hour going uphill. And the side-by-side went over on its side. And she was okay. She landed on me. But I guess just out of habit, I went to throw my leg out to kind of like brace where it was falling over. I went to stick my leg out. And damn if the side-by-side did not land right on the middle of my foot that was already hurt. And you talk about screaming and squallering, because I was pinned down. I was laying on my side and I couldn't reach over there and lift up. I was in a bad position to like kind of pull, and I couldn't get it up. And she went running to the house, and my wife, my other daughter, and her, they come running down there, and there was a rock in the ditch. And I said, give me that rock. And they got it up enough to where I could wedge the rock under. And then we all lifted again, and I could wedge the rock under further. And finally, I got my damn foot out. And today I'm walking around like with one crutch, but shoo, my one foot is twice the size of the other one, still swollen, and it hurts like hell. And that's why I'm going to bed and not being on an episode about beating the shit out of a pickled chicken.
It ain't like you got nothing you got to do. Listen, we never hear from him anymore, but since he ain't been able to work, he was getting
We
bored.
just had 500 text messages yesterday. There is no making you happy. All right.
She's missed you.
Y'all, Hillary keeps sending these things she's making. They're hilarious.
Oh
Greg,
gosh.
I
My
Misty
phone
shared
is
one.
dead.
Greg, before we go, y'all know my son got lucky enough to go to Switzerland. I told Greg, I said, he brought me a Swiss Army knife. You know, it's a small one. It's got, you know, toothpicks and everything. And what'd you say, Greg? What do they call it over in Switzerland?
A knife. An army knife. Oh man.
Oh, he's king of one-liners. Oh my God. It's like he's so dry. It's like, yeah, Peyton just brought me a Swiss Army knife from Switzerland, so it's just an army knife. I'm like, yeah.
Speaking of Swiss Mister, hey man, I'm so proud of him. He undoubtedly had a wonderful time representing the U.S. and the state of Tennessee, all the way over in Switzerland.
Y'all just don't know. He was around big business people from all over the world, and they were asking him questions. And Bree's daddy, his girlfriend's daddy, was laughing his ass off at him because he didn't give two shits. And they and he was just the way I've always been. Hey, act like he's supposed to be there. You know what I'm saying?
Blend in.
I mean, we all look at Peyton like he's just he's a bonus nephew now. And, you know, I looked at them pictures and I'm kind of like what Spencer, I mean, Peyton's got the world by the short and curlies right now. He's jet setting around the world with a dang supermodel. And I mean, he's just got the world by his tail.
But I can just imagine Peyton in Switzerland. In Switzerland, where they do that Davos conference or whatever, yeah. I can imagine Peyton with his fucking redneck ass attitude being over in Switzerland, and people that have never met Americans met Peyton, and they're like, "This is what Americans are like."
Yeah. I got stories I can't tell here, but we might get him on a night owl and let him tell some of them. I will tell you this. He was on the phone with me, and they were walking to this beautiful lake. And what they didn't know, there was a nudist part. And so they're walking out. He said, "Daddy, I couldn't say much to you while it was going on." He said, "Me and Bree were walking down through there. It was all beautiful. And this bus pulled up, and these people got off." He said, "This pretty lady got off, and she looked like she climbed mountains for a living. And she just, you know, unclothed herself." And he said, "I was being respectful, but she was so pretty that Bree said, 'Dang,' like that." He said, so I glanced over there. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of European dingalings started being. We had to go around the other side of the lake. I'm like, oh my God. And he told me about some conversations he's had with people from all over the world, and it's true, the McDonald's food is better. He said he ate like a pig, but the food is so fresh. The water's running out of the mountains from the glacier or the snow melt or whatever, and they've got these free water fountains. They're just free flowing. Everybody carries a bottle or some kind of container. They don't sell bottled water in the stores. He said the food was so fresh and so good. He said he ate like a pig. and everywhere's uphill, So he said he lost like 10 pounds on the trip. And he said,
my grandparents must have gone to school there because everything was uphill, barefoot in the wintertime, 10 miles.
Right. And it's not that big of a place.
5 miles uphill both ways in the snow.
Right.
He said, I think it's comparable to the state of Maine, actually. So it's not a big country. It's just got mountain splitting, which anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Peyton, he said he took his shirt off at the lake, and he said most of the European men are small, thin wrists, all this stuff. He said he took his shirt off and they was looking at him like he was a monster.
Well, he is a pretty big monster.
But anyway, that's all I'll say about that for now.
Well, y'all, I thoroughly enjoyed today. Maybe everybody else did.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure they have. We'll wait till part 2. That's before part 3.
Is it?
We'll get wound up about the motorcycle story and about the story where he was coming out and had the showdown there at the gate. That one's pretty good too. All right. Y'all have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it very much. Love y'all.
Yep. Big love.
Feeling better, Spencer. I give you a lot of shit, but really, I seen the picture. It was bad. I really do hope you're feeling better. And I've left you all alone for the last little while because I know you've been miserable.
just remember, Spencer, all the shit she gives you, she really means it.
Yeah. But all y'all do. And every time they tell me it's nothing but love, it's because we love you. Bye, y'all. Whatever. Don't listen to Misty. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
On the computer, you have to hit okay. Anyway,
just turn me on, turn me up, turn me loose.